Yo bro, imagine you are a top daredevil delinquent, such a scary look that even the Yakuza sweat and tremble with fear. Our guy Monite Zero just wants peace, but everyone thinks he is a beast. He has zero delay in reaction when people talk trash. Back Zero sharply throws back the trash mobs. He is fed up with the rumors. He orders them to stop looking so scared. He hasn't done anything yet. It seems he is a real, absolute monster. With one kick he twisted a whole gang. Suddenly, a wild kid runs onto the road right under the wheels of a huge truck. Zero doesn't even think, he just pushes the boy, throwing him off the road. He realizes too late that he is about to be hit. The truck looms right over him and he definitely understands the end. His life, which everyone feared, flashes before his eyes in the last moments. He wakes up in the library and there is not a single scratch on his body. A man in glasses appears and asks, "Is there a client here?" Zero asks, "Hey, where is this place?" And the other replies, "This is the memory documents section. Our guy got lost because he just saved a child." The man in glasses reads his report and confirms he was hit by a truck. He says directly to Zero, "So you are really dead." And Zero realizes this is the real world after death. He is amazingly calm about this whole situation. The librarian is shocked, accepted his death with the same high-speed, speedrun energy. Zero thought his life was worthless anyway since everyone hated him. The guide shows him a crystal ball to prove that people really cared. The little sister cries bitterly and shouts, "Nonoi-chan." Zero cannot believe what is happening right before him. He, the host, explains, people did not hate him, they were just afraid. Now that he knows the truth, he asks what will happen next. The man offers him a second chance at rebirth. He is not allowed to return home, but he can set off to a completely new world. The librarian says he will use his special power to give him a head start. He rolls several dice to decide Zero's fate in the next life. It is decided that he will go to a world where spirits and magic exist. This world operates on a unique system. Your connection with nature determines your power. His new skill is a passive called the Man Loved by Spirits, which gives him max charisma with magical entities. The librarian waves goodbye until he reveals his true nature. He casually says, "I am a god," at the very moment Zero disappears. Zero does not utter a single scream and pushes the silly four eyes into the dark abyss as he leaves the library. He wakes up under the wide open sky in a lush forest. At first, some insect starts crawling on him and he shouts for the bug to get off him. He glanced at the giant mountains and realized he is no longer in Japan. He again recalls the conversation about reincarnation and how he was dragged into a pit. Something bites him from behind and he is already ready to fight. He grabs the tiny creature and sees it trembling with fear. It is a tiny humanoid with a stone sitting on its head. He asks, "What are you? Can you talk to the little unit?" Zero covers his eyes so the little one won't be scared by his piercing gaze. Working like this, he suddenly realizes he is completely blind. Suddenly, a whole crowd of these little spirits appears in the grass. Instantly, they begin to multiply and surround him. The entire forest floor is covered with these little spirits. They start glowing and behaving too friendly with him. Zero thinks they are insanely cute and accepts his new life together with them. For Guy Mini, Zero got isekai after a four-eyed god threw him into a classic truck accident. He has been enjoying himself for 5 days in a cave with a whole bunch of spirits he calls chibis. Life is quiet, but his little friends are too energetic in the morning. He goes outside to enjoy the weather and feels like he is literally in paradise. He decides to take the chibis fishing so the good mood doesn't fade. Everything looks calm, but our guy suddenly realizes he seems to be living in a hint zone. Chibis can't talk, but they start drawing houses in the dirt to convey messages. Zero understands they have to head to the town, and although he likes his cave, he agrees to check there too. They have been walking for a long time, and the novelty of this new world begins to lose its shine. He finally stumbles upon a stone road and realizes how much he has actually missed modern asphalt. Suddenly, a scream cuts through the air. For the first time in 5 days, he notices a human girl. He tries to greet her with a friendly smile, but his Yankee face is a complete nightmare. The poor girl is so frightened that she gives him all her money just to save her life. Before he can explain that he is one of them, a pack of goblins arrives and ruins everything at the root. Zero doesn't even sweat when he launches a giant kick. He orders the monsters to stop pretending to be asleep and prepares to send them to hell. The girl watches in horror as he prepares to wipe the trash mobs out of existence. Grabbing the enemies in a fold, Zero realizes the girl has fainted from the pressure alone. He tries to start a fire while she is somewhere, but he has zero survival skills. When the girl finally wakes up, she sees spirits and begins to lose her mind. She believes she has been kidnapped and will beg Zero not to sell her off. She starts winding herself up, worrying that her first time will not be with a prince but with a scary delinquent. Zero finally loses patience and yells at her to shut up already. He explains he saved her life and now just wants to kindle a fire. He asks if she has a lighter, and she looks at him as if he is a fat, brainless fool. She casually conjures magic to light the log and no one seems able to come to their senses. Zero is completely stunned. Magic, what is that? He asks, confirming that he has no knowledge of all this. Girl Grace cannot believe that someone does not know the basics of this world. She starts mumbling to herself, convinced that our guy remembers absolutely nothing. Zero explains, in his old world, no one could use magic at all. Grace feels guilty for him and decides to explain that magic is simply the materialization of mana into elements. She says that everyone is capable of it, so Zero tries to shout fire away to put out the campfire. Nothing happened there and he just ended up a clown in front of his new friend. Grace is confused. Usually such an amount of magic should be enough for something to happen. Zero falters for a second attempt, such a terrifying look that Grace almost faints again. Eventually he gives up, remains calm, although magically he is clearly weakened. He asks why she even came out here and she explains she wanted a contract with a spirit. She is convinced he lost his memory again as soon as he starts talking to his invisible chibai friends. She explains that spirits are tiny elemental creatures that people usually cannot see. Zero realizes he has a secret advantage with sea spirits when he sees a huge cluster of them around her. Grace explains that making a contract makes a mage many times stronger. If you have 3 or more, you are considered national level power. Zero calls her a child because she is here now without any real plan on how to find them. She admits she just gave in to a rumor and Zero considers it a trash strategy. He decides to act like a bro and offers to help her. He believes that for a long journey 2 people are better than 1. Tripping, Grace breathes out with relief. Being alone in the forest was already making her sweat. Finally, they call each other by name and he introduces himself simply, Zero. So she introduces herself as Grace Aura, but there is a hint of shyness in that pronunciation. She is actually glad that she came across someone who is not a complete monster, despite his face. He gives him a warm smile and shakes his hand to seal the agreement. But as soon as a moment of silence comes, her surname is immediately distorted, and Zero immediately butchers it. He starts calling her Gusu Aik and refuses to pronounce it correctly letter by letter. Despite the quarrels, the new group keeps course for Karato Town and sets off. Zero reaches the checkpoint, but the guards immediately lose their composure because of his terrifying face. Atsu has to break into the conversation and explain that her companion is not a demon from the abyss. As soon as they pass the gate, our guy finds himself surrounded by a real army of cute spirits. Eventually they enter Karato Town, a very ordinary starting town. Zero notices everyone each has wild hair colors and asks if this is some strange local trend. You explain that the color of her hair is tied to magical properties. Her red hair means she is a fire specialist. Zero tries to force fire magic by powerfully running through with a shout, but it seems he still gets earth magic because of his light brown hair. Yuso tells him to stop joking, his face is already scary enough. Suddenly some completely worthless crowd starts bullying an old man in the middle of the street. Before Gyuso can even blink, Zero disappears from her side to get to work. He accidentally hits the troublemaker, an idiot with size, with his forehead to relieve his aggression. The guy tries to look cool, but Zero just flies into him with a fierce straight punch to the stomach. Seeing this absolute monster crushed with one blow, and the brother of that guy is overwhelmed with real panic. Zero gives them such a look it's almost a curse, so they apologize and run away at record speed. Imagine how she tries to scold him for being too harsh, and Zero just thinks he acted mercifully. He even promises to deliver a truly devastating blow next time, and that's definitely not what she meant. Turns out the old man is Uruji, the legendary blacksmith from this town. To show his gratitude, he orders Zero to choose any item from his shop's equipment and give it away for free. Yasu tries to look calm and refuses, but reminds, right now he has 0 defense stats. Finally, he equips himself with light breastplates, looks like a decent mid-game upgrade. When Uruji asks which legendary saber he wants, Zero simply asks for an iron pipe. Yusuke starts to get worked up because that's not a weapon at all in this world. Zero insists that adding nails to the pipe makes this weapon top tier. Uruji actually loves this chaotic energy and agrees to take on the creation of this unique request. While the old man strikes the anvil, Gusu goes out to pick up supplies and food. Zero asks her to grab some bandages but doesn't explain why yet. Left alone, Zero just chills with the local spirits. They seem to adore him. He starts tapping his fingers strangely as a sign of friendship in front of every chibai ghost in the room. Honestly, it's cute to see a guy who looks like a final boss behave so calmly and friendly with the little ones. Finally, the creation process is complete. Zero takes out his new weapon and immediately realizes it is incredibly light for its size. Yatsu looked at it and immediately understood. The old man really crafted a pipe from mithril. This is a high-class reserve for the equipment of holy knights, not for a dumb stick. Zero ignores the lore and simply uses bandages to create the perfect grip. He thanks the old man for the god-tier loot and prepares to move on. The duo sets off to spend the night at the inn, but things get awkward when the host asks if one room will be enough for them. Gusi immediately breaks out in a sweat and demands 2 separate rooms before everything goes downhill. Gusi throws a grand tantrum. She feels that because Zero overslept, their entire schedule was completely ruined. She is convinced if he had woken her earlier, they would already be in Spirit's forest, not wasting time. The clock is ticking. Our guy is already losing patience, especially when she admits that she might only roughly know the real route. And the girl literally relies on pure RNG intuition to find the legendary location. She explains that the spirits make the environment resemble a high-quality masterpiece, pure water and rich soil. Zero examined the chibai he was constantly hanging around with and realized they exactly matched this description. And she was completely lost. He decides to stop the delay and lead the way himself. Usu immediately becomes wary but feels that she is being taken to some murky, dark forest. But after Zero threatens to leave and abandon her behind, she finally decides to follow him. They reach Jiro's house base and it is a real monster forest, hidden from the whole world. He greets this place as if he just finished a long, exhausting grind session and finally returned to his save point. Usu is stunned. Magical power seeps from every tree here. She cannot believe that this hidden zone really exists since no historical book had any proof. Our guy finally drops the lore. He is actually an isekai protagonist from another world. Dusu thinks this explains both his strange clothes and complete lack of knowledge about magic. Zero begins to slowly feel sad due his chibai friends only stick with him because of cheat knowledge. Ngusu gives him a rare W. Supposedly, friendship and skill are 2 completely different things. Everything becomes real when she warns him to keep his ability to see with the power of the spirit a secret. If high-level players found out, they would try to kidnap him to forcibly make contracts with spirits and boost their stats. This idea will make Zero switch to full beastly rage mode. He will promise to calm down anyone who dares to touch his chibai throws. Despite Goose, who sees nothing, she can still say that they are good by how they behave near Zero. USU is sweating drops. She still cannot make a contract. After a week of failures, she is already ready to delete the account purely out of despair and calls herself a loser. Zero notices a new spirit and tries to help her complete the deal. He even vouches for her, telling the spirit that Gusu is actually a good person just under all that salt. Zero offers to do this to seal the friendship and Gusu instantly falls into real panic. Turns out it is just a light touch of a finger as a sign of friendship. Gasu finally puts the puzzle together. She failed to get the contract because Zero accidentally declared all the spirits in this area first. She felt relieved that it was not a trash mob, but she still blames Zero for the whole misunderstanding. Suddenly, a spirit really approaches her and starts bargaining. Usu's vision finally clears and she sees a small spirit for the first time. The spirit descends to make a contract, and Gusu actually stands up from pure joy. Her guy quietly smiles, happy to see her finally making her first big break. Even when she sleeps, she still mumbles that Zero is to blame for everything, supposedly. A few days after Gusu Ayake made a contract with the fire spirit, the carriage continues to shake on the bumps. The journey to the capital goes on. The road lags when Gusu starts to look like she is about to lose self-control. Our guy does not accept this and scolds her for not telling earlier about her seasickness. Lately she behaves suspiciously, hiding under a heavy cloak even when it is boiling hot in the carriage. Suddenly something triggers in his dangerous sense and he pulls her into the thicket. He makes her keep her head low while they sweep the perimeter. A pack of goblins is rummaging nearby and it is clear that they are about to aim and draw attention to themselves. Usu tries to break ahead and use her spirit magic to deal with the threat. The MC does not wait for the cast bar and immediately jumps into the fight. The goblins notice him, but they are too slow. They cannot react to his speed. And he lives by one rule: in a fight, the one who strikes first is the winner. He throws these trash mobs as if they weigh nothing. One goblin is knocked out cold by a heavy kick to the chest. He stands over the remains of the monsters, looking like a true raid boss. Having cleared the field, he wipes the blood and enjoys the post-battle adrenaline. He notices strange black ornaments falling from the corpses and wonders if this is rare loot. The load becomes too heavy for Gusu and she completely faints. They decide to set up camp for the night because the girl has run out of mana. MC hands her the medicine that Chibai prepared to help her recover faster. He tells her to stay put while he goes to gather firewood himself. He behaves a bit like a bungler, choosing words roughly and foolishly, which makes her feel like a burden. He looks completely broken and apologizes for being completely useless. Suddenly everything becomes unbearably awkward and our guy realizes he has broken the social bond. She sits there silently and thinks about why she even got involved in this quest. He feels like a complete NPC next to his strength. The mediator grits his teeth, remembering how he wanted to become a better person in this new life. He lets out an angry scream because he terribly knows how to express his feelings calmly. Finally, he tells her to just unload everything and say what's on her mind. She looks at him with her huge anime-style eyes and asks if he will really listen to her story. She admits that she has a sister who is essentially a professional at everything. The only thing she wants is for her family to recognize her as a true sorceress. MC realizes her backstory is made as if it mirrors his own past life. He remembered how he was once a thug whom everyone was afraid to even understand. He tells her that seeking external approval from worthless people is a trap. He promises if someone talks nonsense, he will personally confront them and knock out all the foolishness. He finally breaks into a smile and thanks him for the support. Even the spirits root for her as soon as she finally falls asleep. The next morning, MC wakes up and sees a plate in front of him with something that looks like real poison. Turns out she tried to cook breakfast and it is a complete disaster. He frantically insists that her cooking has more deadly intent than the monsters they fought. He jokes, realizing that she is just a sheltered fool. They finally get on the right course and head to the capital of Alpha. Massive walls appear and before the eyes stands a fortress beast, a true absolute behemoth. At the gate's a huge queue and it's a complete nightmare for their pace. Usu tells him to stop worrying about the inspection and just follow her. She drags him all the way to the front, completely skipping the queue. Guards immediately notice and move towards them. The host thinks he is about to be banned for breaking the rules. But instead of arresting them, the guards bow and greet her like at home. She is called Gray-sama and it immediately becomes clear that her true identity is on a much higher level than she showed. Her guy's brain completely shuts down. He freezes in shock and looks intently at her, trying to understand who exactly he had been flying with all this time, what kind of VIP person. Grace realizes that just hanging around the castle gates is not allowed, so she leads the guy inside so he can finally settle in. Guards instantly lower their bows as soon as they see her face, causing Zero to be completely lost. He tries to outplay the situation in his head and guesses. Supposedly, she is actually the daughter of some corrupt merchant. He even tells her to go and die in a fire because he thinks she is just a spoiled girl. They approach this huge fortress of a top-level team, and Zero still can't put everything together. He literally asks if she is blackmailing the entire staff just to get in even at the doorstep. Suddenly, a giant aura of pure trample me energy appears as Grace's older sister arrives. This buddy is the talented twin everyone is gossiping about, and Grace is already trembling with fear. The sister immediately goes on the attack. She pulls Grace for trying to slip away from a visit to their father. Then she notices Zero and decides he is too mediocre to be in her castle, so she orders the guards to throw him out. Our guy is officially furious. This woman calls him a monster with disgusting eyes. Zero will not let some royal arrogance push him down, so he tells her he is ready to fight if she is too. The sister is shocked by his vulgar language, but eventually Grace finds strength within herself and intervenes. Then she declares that Zero is her friend and guest, and effectively pulls aggro away from him. When they leave, Zero can't hold back and throws in one last jab. He tells his sister that she would look more formidable if her legs weren't trembling like a leaf. The sister is simply boiling with such disrespect, but the group still doesn't stop and moves on. They eventually end up in a room that looks like it belongs to a full whale hunting account. Grace finally drops the lore bomb. She is actually the second princess of the Orphan Kingdom. She fears that our guy will start acting strange or get angry because she hid this secret. Zero just gives a blank look and asks, "So what?" He lightly headshots her to snap her out of panic. It seems to him she is just a friend, and he wasn't about to suddenly drop to his knees like that clumsy dumb duck. Grace sighs with relief. Her friend is still an uncontrollable barbarian, even if he calls her an idiot. Just then, Lily's personal maid appears with a tea set. At first, she looks like a standard waifu, introducing herself immediately and without any delays. Greg disappears and gets married in long silence, while Jace fixes his gaze on Grace, who is already preparing to change for the official audience with the king. The second favor disappears, the atmosphere becomes poisonous, and Zero hears a loud click of the tongue. Lily instantly drops the roll, calls him a biting bug, and orders him not to look at her. Zero understands this maid is a complete two-faced person, the same evil predator, kind only when the boss is watching her. She simply tells him directly to go die because Grace is not here to hear this toxicity. Zero loses self-control at how this petty scoundrel allows himself disrespect. But just as everything is about to boil over, Grace returns elegant in a ceremonial dress like a legendary weeping pillar. Lily immediately switches to perfect maid mode, pretending she became a victim of her own clumsiness. Grace falls for the bait and asks Zero to forgive the girl for the misunderstanding. While Grace smiles, Lily throws at Zero the most daring, most malicious "it's you" face in history. Zero is about to make a full-speed run of his life, but Grace implores him to calm down. Finally, they reach the huge doors of the throne room and saw the main boss. Grace forces him to promise to keep himself together and not say anything unnecessary to her father. Zero throws her a "trust me" look when the doors finally open. Grace finally reaches the palace and stands before her father, the king. Our guy Zero just stands still with his spirit squad, looking completely indifferent to the royal pomp. Princess Amari's immediately switches to full bandit mode, demanding that Zero kneel before her father. Grace looks as if she is about to have a mental breakdown, and the spirits literally tremble with fear. Zero understands he will have to play by the rules for a while, so he eventually kneels to keep the peace. Amari's does not stop complaining about some worthless commoner who entered the palace, but the king cuts her off, calling Zero a guest. Zero boils inside and thinks that the name Kuswama, or bitch, suits this toxic sister perfectly. The king breathes directly into Grace's neck and asks if she understands the consequences of her sudden disappearance. Grace tries to behave with dignity and apologizes sincerely and deeply. The king is indifferent to her feelings, coldly asks what she really gained from her selfish path. Grace tries to find words to explain herself while the pressure of the throne room weighs on her. She finally responds excitedly, advising that she managed to make a contract with the spirit. Amari's even tries to justify her, hoping that this means Grace will finally accept their father, but the king gets fully angry, calls her a fool, and orders her to know her place. He insists that her immaturity is the real reason why she couldn't make a contract earlier, and completely ignores her grand victory. The king orders her to get out of his sight, and even when Amari's tries to object, he immediately stops her. Grace looks completely broken when she agrees to go to her room to think alone. She tries to act casual and tells Zero that she will prepare a room for him. And our guy knows no limits when he sees his friends being bent like toys to the trash. He strokes her head and says he cannot stay silent. He turns on Zero against the king and Amari's, ordering Kusuame to keep his tongue behind his teeth. He shouts that their people should praise her efforts after she survived a dangerous journey and grew up. The king looks offended. Some peasant answers, asking how stupid Zero really is. Zero does not back down and asks the king if he really thinks she was just eager for success. He calls the king a complete idiot for treating his own daughter like a pimple. The king finally shames himself and orders the guards to seize this insolent boy. Zero just smirks crookedly and tells him to come at him so that he takes the attention of the entire fortress. He is ready to deal with both the guards and this bad sister if necessary. He looks at Grace and orders her to say something right now before the chance is gone. Zero reminds her that she left home because she hated being looked down on by everyone. Grace finally intervenes but does not fight. She apologizes for the fact that it is her fault in this outing. She tells her sister to be quiet, insisting that this is her problem, she has to deal with it because she is royalty. Grace admits that she was thoughtless, but immediately flashes a smile at her father. There she admits, although Zero's manner of speaking is terrible, hearing someone openly release emotions was refreshing. Zero continues to try to take the blame on himself, shouting that he did it all alone to protect her. The king understands that both are acting on their own, and eventually orders Zero to be taken to the guest room. Late that night, Zero sits in his room and wonders if the law will ground him any moment now. The maid approaches with food but tells him she regrets he was not supposed to be executed. And she starts throwing insults, calling him a shitty bug for hitting Grace in the wrong place. Listen, she explains, because of his stunt, Grace can really lose her succession to the throne. The maid warns him rumors that Grace is already falling have started to spread also because she got a boyfriend like him. Zero actually shows that he realizes everything, admits that he talks like a stupid freak. He tells the maid that he simply could not accept that Grace was not allowed to receive praise from her own family. The The maid calls him an idiot for making enemies of everyone, but Zero says he won't change for anyone. As soon as she leaves, she quietly thanks him and our guy remains completely confused. Zero tries to clear his head, looking out the window while his spirit neighbors from the spirit squad rest nearby. He decides he needs to find Grace to discuss their next move, but the castle is a real monolith. During the dead of night, he completely loses his way in the corridors. He stumbles unsuccessfully right in front of Amari's room and hears her raging inside. He peeks through the door, hoping for a fight, but encounters something much stranger. It turns out the older sister was actually insanely afraid of Zero's terrifying eyes and starts sobbing as soon as she is alone. Zero is stunned. All this time she was almost sweating from fear. But when he sees her take out her little sister's doll, everything suddenly becomes strange. He begins hugging the doll and fixates on how much she loves Grace. Zero realizes he just flew into a huge sister complex and understands the situation is very bad. He whispers to his spirits that they need to immediately delete this memory from their brains. But suddenly Grace appears behind him and asks what he is doing near her sister's door. Zero is already in full panic mode, trying to look like he is just returning to his room. Grace apologizes for disturbing her sister and says she is leaving. Zero realizes if he turns around now, the crazy sister inside will definitely kill him. Zero understands that he has stepped on a huge landmine as the princess's older sister has just cornered him. Osuyuaki tries to disappear from sight before the situation gets dirty. That sister doesn't let anyone leave without a conversation. Grace actually thinks that Zero is trying to score points competing with her brother or sister, although that's not what he has in mind at all. Her guy tries to slip away as soon as she disappears from sight. Unfortunately, the sister has zero delay and pulls him straight into her personal chambers. The atmosphere thickens as she pours a cup of tea seasoned with pure poison. She looks at him intently and asks if he has seen her awkward moment before. Suddenly, a dagger whistles past his head like a warning shot. Eventually, Zero loses self-control and starts barking in response. She's sure that he is some low-tier player trying to blackmail her. He immediately stops, declaring that he is not a coward. The sister says that just being a good sister means pretending to be a gatekeeper. Zero shoots at her with the ultimate truth, calling her a complete siskin. He tells her to shut up and listen to his experienced veteran advice. If she continues to be a fat fool, Gus Aki will eventually start hating her forever. The sister realizes the distance between them is actually increasing. Zero starts throwing her lines he read in a book to adapt the situation to himself. He comes up with a plan to play the role of a bridge so they can finally be honest with each other. He fully embraces the best friend's strategy. As soon as he decides he has broken free, she grabs him again to remind him what is at stake. He promises to lay flowers on his grave if he reveals her secret. Zero holds his position and promises to help them get closer. He responds to her with a sincere smile, acknowledging that he has already come to terms at home and has essentially left his sister in the past. This makes the villain blush for a second as he disappears from sight. Later that night, he finds Grace on the balcony. She is simply freezing, staring into the void. He accidentally scares her to death, quietly sneaking up from behind. They pause quietly for a moment and look at the stars together. Grace thanks him for helping her feel lively. She reveals her old dream to finally be recognized as worthy of royalty by her father. She wants to be a leader whom people can truly trust. Even if she is exiled, she has decided to hold herself with dignity and not bow her head. Zero feels no responsibility for all the mess he himself caused. Grace jokingly asks if he will take responsibility for her if she gets kicked out. Zero takes everything seriously. He promises to find her a job and housing. Thought that she will no longer be with Zero hits her painfully. The guy recalls how in his past life he was always a lone player. The fact that a person truly wants to stay by his side makes him genuinely happy. Ray instantly pulls him out of his inner monologue with a sharp pinch. He suggests they go on a journey together. They will travel the world until Zero finds his own purpose. Her smile at such a moment makes Zero realize how truly incredible she is. He reflects on how his appearance in this world and meeting these chibis finally satisfied him. Making more friends on the go doesn't sound like a bad idea. First, they need to deal with the king sitting on his throne. King raises all that chaos from the previous day. He demands proof that Grace can really make contracts with spirits. To put an end to the dispute, he throws an unexpected quest at them. Zero has been stuck in this new world for already 2 months. He is now riding in the royal carriage, too luxurious to feel even a little comfortable. Our guy knows they stick out like a bone in the throat for any potential enemy. Emigress is completely stupid. She thinks their power will keep them safe. Grace is just as naively confident. She thinks there is no rebel in this country. Zero is already all sweaty because he knows this journey will turn into a complete disaster. All this disgrace started back in the castle, and the king decided to test Grace's power. Since she made a contract with a spirit, they need to check if she really pulls her weight. The mission is simple: find the lizardmen's nest near the village in the east and destroy them. Amari's was trailing behind them, but from the very beginning of their camp, she was a constant headache. While Zero carries everything on himself, she just stands and complains like a true buddy. Even the maid behaves like a threat. She directly hits Zero when he is already downstairs. She drags him away for a private conversation to drop some serious lore. Turns out there is a faction that hates the royal family and wants it gone. She warns him the real threat does not come from outside, it is born inside the kingdom itself. Zero realizes the shiny carriage is essentially a huge target on their backs. They need serious camouflage if they want to survive the road to the village. Zero orders the group to leave the wagon situation to him. While the girls fuss over preparing food, he activates his secret weapons. These chibas have a crazy sense of usefulness and immediately get to work. The next morning, the maid is completely stunned by what she sees. Last night, the luxurious royal carriage instantly turned into an ordinary cart. This is a complete speedrun of repairs. Such a thing should not be physically possible at all. Finally, they approach the village to see how everything is arranged here. The village elder confirms the lizard people made nests in the cave an hour from here. Zero wants to gather even more reconnaissance data, but Amaris stops him immediately. She tries to pull the blanket by rank and claims she should be the leader because she has experience. The mage extinguishes all this instantly and reminds everyone that this is Grace's task. They finally run up to the cave and see a fire near the entrance. The group tries to play quietly while scouting the numbers. But Amaris has zero patience. She stands right in plain sight, not hiding. She insists that the winner is the one who strikes first, and that is the dumbest logic of all. Zero literally loses control and tells her, turn on your brain at least once. Her perfect plan is to take on 5 monsters while the rest of the squad deals with the other 4. Zero is really worried about RNG. What are the chances that such a muscle-bound fool ends up on the team? He understands these girls don't even see the chibis, so communicating is a complete nightmare. He decides they need to retreat to the village to finally use their brains. Maris tries to look brutal and asks why she should obey him. Zero turns around and gives her a look that makes the final boss disappear. His aura is so terrifying that the whole group instantly folds and unanimously agrees to retreat. The team needs to put their builds together before everything falls apart and becomes chaotic. Usaku starts with a strike and immediately shows she has a contract with a spirit to enhance her fire magic. Now there is Lily the servant. She wields ice magic and has her own spirit companion. She is definitely top-tier support, showing ice manipulations with zero delay. And she also has a mean streak, accidentally shot our guy, hitting him with an ice shard. She plays dumb and reduces everything to the fact that the hand itself supposedly just slipped off. Then Princess Knight Amaku begins to boast about her legendary gear. She is dressed in pure mithril equipment and believes that only she has meta-tier loot. Our guy is not impressed and shows his iron pipe looks simple but is actually top-tier mithril too. She tries to read his bluff by hitting the pipe to check if it will break. The quality is so cracked that her own gear looks like starter junk. She immediately starts sweating, accusing him of being a thief. Grace has to intervene and vouch for him before the team dynamics completely collapse. While they argue, our guy is actually playing 4D chess with his invisible chibis. He sent them on reconnaissance because only he can see these tiny absolute monsters. He knows to quickly complete this quest, only one move matters first. He throws info that 15 lizardmen are waiting in the linear tunnel. The maid senses something suspicious and demands to know where he got this information from. Grace panics and insists that it is his skill that keeps all secrets safe. He says that God actually gave him a cheat code for gathering information. The maid thinks she is just a fool, but for now accepts this explanation. Our guy gets a little emotional and admits he doesn't want any party members to get lost. He gives the girls cute nicknames, and because of this, the fighter's knight and the maid are completely confused and lose their composure. Grace feels offended because she wasn't included in the nickname club and starts throwing a tantrum. He strokes her head to calm her down, and this is basically a critical hit to her heart. He thanks her for the help and leaves her completely bewildered. Teasing quickly disappears as soon as he calls them blockhead sisters. Finally, they reach the enemy spawn and notice lizard people guarding the cave. Girls actually fell asleep while waiting, a complete rookie move. Our guy is building them up without any chill because the raid is about to start any moment. Ubis confirm trash mobs are finally starting to catch at least a few Z's. Plan is this: flood the entrance and use the water to enhance their magical damage. Maku has to drop a thunder nuke bomb on the puddle to paralyze everyone. But our guy is elated. He thinks this strategy is pure perfection. Princess is actually using her head. She suggests an ice wall to herd the enemies into a kill zone. Our guy is really stunned. She came up with something decent. Maid finishes preparations and the aura around the group becomes increasingly tense. They stare intently into the dark abyss of the cave, waiting for the first sign of movement. Once the trap is set, our guy is ready to pull this fight. It's time to check whether this partnership really works or if it's just a disaster waiting to happen. Grace tightly grips her weapon and prepares to prove that she is not just a talisman. Our guy starts banging on the frying pan to pull aggro from the darkness. Plan works instantly. A scaly freak crawls out of the bushes. A whole squad of lizard folk begins storming their position with no chance of normal. Isako completely loses self-control and lets out a trembling, terrifying scream. She panics and releases a colossal wave of black lightning. Even our guy is caught off guard. Magic is pure chaos, and the MC has to dive into the fight to prevent the total destruction of the entire party. Somehow he diverts the raw magic, and the girls wondered how he was even holding it together. While the lizard folk are still coming, Grace decides, finally, it's her turn to carry. He shouts that monsters are best crispy and charges a huge spell. Her guy tries to tell her to tone it down, but she is already in full glass cannon mode. Powerful flash blinds the whole group, and the lightning, rushing through, wipes out everything in its path. When the smoke clears, it becomes visible. Grace actually went through the whole fight at speed without pauses. All lizardmen in this area turned into coal. Grace looks overly confident, almost annoyingly so, but our guy is boiling. She almost destroyed the entire cave. He starts counting bodies and realizes RNG is messed up. Suddenly, a survivor jumps out of the shadows and rushes for a sudden sneak attack. Before MC can react, Gyusako pushes him out of the danger zone. The blow throws her back right into the darkness of the cave. Our guy lets out a roar. He understands. The kid took the hit meant for him. He doesn't even wait for a plan, charges straight into the cave like an absolute monster. Inside, Jesuku remembers how much she wanted her father to praise her. MC is hit to zero, calls himself stupid while his anger hits the ceiling of the limit. He looks at the lizardman from head to toe and mocks his pathetic accuracy. Now he is in a full berserker state, insists he doesn't even feel pain anymore. He shortens the distance and starts breaking the lizardman without any delay. He stands over the mangled remains, and his expression is a complete nightmare. Grace catches up to her and prepares to finish off with another high-level spell. She screams die and drops another nuclear bomb into the tight space. The main character barely manages to shield himself from friendly fire. Billy watches from the entrance and prays that the whole mountain doesn't shift. Grace celebrates her one accurate kill while MC literally coughs up dust. He yells at her for being a brainless fatty and for nearly causing a cave collapse. The ceiling starts cracking immediately, and with this, he proves he is right. Among the falling rocks, he notices a strange glowing egg on the ground. He grabs the loot while Grace yells at him to just run away. They barely manage to get out of the tunnel when the entrance immediately collapses. Grace tries to pass it off as a trifle, but MC is just glad they weren't buried. He glanced at Gyusuko to check how she was, but she looks as if a ghost just appeared. She is staring intently at their hands, and a terrifying aura is emanating from her. Turns out MC and Grace are still holding hands since the escape. Azuka switches to full Yandere mode, demanding to know why they are so affectionate and cozy with each other. Grace immediately panics and tries to explain the situation. Yusuko starts throwing a crazy tantrum. She hasn't even managed to take anyone by the hand yet. Meanwhile, as the girls argue, the little spirits just watch, sighing with relief. The chaos is finally over. Grace got several extremely bad burns from the fireball, but overall she is almost fine. Since she uses fire magic, she is naturally resistant to being burned alive. She notices that Zero is bleeding and asks if he lost it, but he is just worried about her. Her guy pats her on the head to calm her down, a pure pro-gamer move. The mood changes instantly as soon as Zero takes out the ominous black egg stolen from Lizard Man. Emiku loses self-control and sharply slaps him right across the face. She trembles with excitement and asks if he feels anything strange, discomfort, or malaise. She draws her sword and demands an answer. Does he have connections with the Spirit Liberation Troop? Zero is simply confused. These chibis are way too relaxed. They clearly don't need any liberation. Maku is ready to erase him if his next words are like that. Zero stands still, showing everyone that he is not an enemy and not part of some strange cult. He says if he wanted to harm them, he would have finished everything long ago and run away. Grace rushed to help and protected him, reminding her sister that he is a complete novice in this world. Zero feels the pressure of the situation and notices his hands are sweating insanely. Maka tells him to stop talking nonsense. Our guy realizes he is not really afraid of failing, he is afraid that the group will hate him. He recalls his past life and how he always put on a wild armor to hide his feelings. No laughter until the girls realize the stone he holds is a top-level danger. He says he has just begun to understand how this world works. And he drops a nuclear bomb, I am from another world. Maku immediately delivers another physical blow right to the face. She thinks he is a liar beneath contempt and promises to properly interrogate him in the dungeon. Grace finally reaches the edge and stands right between their weapons. Both point at her with the red and demand she leave the splash zone. Grace shouts that she will grow up and start hating both if they don't stop this quarrel right now. That threatening move hits harder than the boss's ultimate, forcing them both to sheath their blades. Grace says she truly believes in Zero because when they met, he knew nothing about magic. She also says, although his eyes are scary, he never once tried to cheat the rewards. She even teased him, saying Zero-san is not that skilled anyway. Even Chibai at this moment start clowning on Zero. Amiko finally agrees to a temporary truce for the sake of her sister. They light a campfire to discuss the true lore story of this world. The world, obviously the Spirit Liberation Troop Squad believes that spirits are higher beings that humans cannot control. Zero looks at the black stone and thinks about how it fits into the meta. Amaku explains this is a cursed item, the stone sucks the magical power of whoever holds it. Grace asks what exactly the debuff does to a person's body. In the worst case, the victim falls into a coma and never wakes up again. Amaris tells the girls to give him a barely noticeable touch, let them see for themselves what the effect will be. Barely touch and it's as if their internal batteries start to fly off. And then Zero just picks all this up and feels absolutely nothing. They understand this artifact may give RNG effects only to those born in this world. Grace begins to piece together a crazy assumption about our guy. She asks Zero if he really is completely incapable of using magic. Maku loses his head because this should be mechanically impossible. Zero orders her to shut up so Grace can get to the point. Grace brings out the final explosive trump card of the meeting. It's not that he was weakened or that he just casts spells poorly. The guy literally has zero magical power in his entire body. Maris can't believe her ears when Zero admits that he has zero magical stats. In this world, no one casts spells, so he is effectively playing a completely different game. She starts twisting everything around because she can't understand how someone survives without mana. Zero just flies at her with logic. He says he has water flasks and a fire striker, so he doesn't sweat from fear. He laughs at disability, but Amaris loses her temper and strikes him for being so calm about it. The guy grumbles about friendly fire while they stretch past those huge cliffs. Zero does not pressure Amaris in political games and does not touch the meta, asking about the rebels she mentioned earlier. She finally spills the confidential tea, revealing that she is actually the vice captain of the Royal Knights. Zero realizes that she is not just some worthless fool, and Lily asks how badly the rebellion is spreading. Amaris explains that the Spirit Liberation Squad is gaining momentum because people are tired of the royal family. Zero notices a pattern. Monsters usually do not break away from their business to specifically hunt people. Usually these trash mobs only aggro when you trespass on their territory. And lately, they have been organizing speedrunning attacks on real human villages. Zero takes out a black stone and wonders, is this cursed tool causing the malfunction? Maris is stuck no record that monsters carry these mana-draining stones. Mystery is why monsters do not get nerfed by the presence of the stone. Grace intervenes, recalling how the rock tried to suck everything out of her just by touch. Zero asks the spirits to tell a legend, but they look scared and refuse to speak. Without new leads, the squad decides to finish the quest and head back to the village. They reach the village and find that the surrounding atmosphere is completely shrouded in fog. Grace thinks this festival is just for her, but Zero reminds her that she is a silly fool and orders everyone to stay low. From behind the bushes, they notice a group of hooded villains. They are snooping around looking for princesses. Maris confirms that these guys are from the Spirit Liberation Troop. They realized the rebels are hunting specifically for Amaris and Grace. Turned out that their luxurious carriage was actually shining like a beacon to the enemy. Lily and Amaris are ready to go kill, but Zero orders them to wait. He scolds them for wanting to rush forward without checking the enemy's positions. Zero says that striking first is his job and they must stay in cover. He uses the fog as a tactical advantage and asks Lily if the crew is ready for a quick retreat. Lily is exhausted but agrees to take the wheel of the escape vehicle. Zero throws the girls an icy, terrifying, predatory look and orders them not to utter a sound. Princesses tremble with fear as they hide. As soon as they approach the village entrance, the guards block the road. Lily tells Zero to keep the girls hidden under the cloth while she leads the conversation. Guards immediately stop the carriage. They demand to know why someone is traveling so early. Lily looks back and asks her master what she should do next. Zero is confused by the name change, but Lily immerses herself in the role play. Guards see Zero's terrifying face and think it is a real ogre. Lily apologizes, claiming that her master is a fierce, evil absolute monster. She weaves tall tales about how she traveled to the hot springs and then returned to their estate again. She incessantly scorches the audience about Zero's character to sell this lie, while Zero is furiously boiling inside. Guards decide they don't want trouble and let the carriage pass. Lily smiles indulgently. The plan worked perfectly, though Zero is dying of shame inside. Girls start giggling at the main joke as the carriage rolls away. Zero's blood pressure hits record highs. Maris and Grace can't help but mock while they celebrate the clean escape. Our guy just wants to get back to capital before he loses his mind. The squad rides off into the distance, successfully evading the rebel blockade. Maris pesters the whole group with questions, still trying to understand why some rebel squad is hunting them specifically. Zero and Grace are completely baffled as soon as they hear a hint of a possible substitution plan. Maris dropped heavy lore without spirits. The country can't even stand on its feet. Essentially, if the sisters are captured, the rebels will use them as leverage to demand freedom of spirit. She tells Lily to step on the gas because they need to immediately report this mess to her father. Zero understands this is already much more complicated than just an escort mission. When they approach the castle, a huge man like a mountain comes out to meet them. This burly guy is homeless, and he is clearly excited to see Maris again. Maris introduces him as the captain of the knightly order. Homeless has already heard rumors about a foul-mouthed guy who dared to argue with the king. He laughs madly, almost folding 05, and also slaps him on the back in a friendly way. Zero doesn't even want to listen and tells that guy straight to his face that he is some terrible old man. Grace is trembling with fear. You can't talk to the captain of the knights like that. Gamlas is truly impressed by Zero's lack of fear and offers him a place in the queue. Zero responds with a refusal at speedrun level, saying he has zero interest in joining such a wooden group. Just as Zero disappears, Maris becomes serious and tells the captain that they have encountered a squad of rebels in the village. This confirms that their intelligence was leaked, a huge red flag for the kingdom's security. They are heading straight to the throne room to see the king. Maris is annoyed by the fact that Zero simply joined the royal audience like that. The king silences her and tells Grace that it is time for her official report. Grace takes a deep breath and prepares to lay out everything that happened. She confirms that the lizardman's nest in the east was completely destroyed. But there is a catch. She mentions a mysterious black rock found near the monster's body. Mara steps forward to explain how exactly the rebels hunted the princesses. King looks as if he is about to explode from the shocking news. He orders Grace to submit a full written report as soon as possible. Then he tells Maris to assist her sister while a room is prepared for their guest. Zero really gets worked up because the king behaves like a cold NPC, not like a father. Right before they leave, the king finally softens and says to Grace, "You did well." Grace looks as if she just pulled out a 5-star level unit, insanely happy. Not the slightest smirk. Finally, it's clear that the old man showed some human emotions. When everything is settled in the castle, Zero watches as the sisters set off to handle their royal affairs. It dawns on him both Grace and Maris tremble with tension, contemplating the future of their people. They have real duties as royal figures, so they can't just ignore them. Zero stands in the corridor and looks confusedly at one point, as if he lost his train of thought. He begins to doubt his own path in this world. And Lily watches him walk away and feels, our guy is going through a deep inner crisis. Zero is stuck in his head thinking whether it's worth continuing to drift endlessly from place to place. He knows he can't run away for long, but swallowing it is too painful. Yusuku brings him back to reality, calls him a fool for zoning out while she was talking. Honestly, these two argue like an old married couple, pure enjoyment. Yusuku throws in some lore, says he has to investigate that mysterious black rock and the Spirit Liberation Corps. That means their big adventure is stuck in a huge delay. The guy tries to be Chad and tells her not to worry. But the princess has a different plan. She thinks Zero will just be locked up in the castle with her. Zero is completely confused and has no idea why. Damn it, he should be a permanent resident in the palace. Yusuku starts sweating with fear, afraid he'll haunt her and leave alone. She switches to hard aggression mode, insisting that he stay, saying they made a promise. Even Maris intervenes and says it's too dangerous to let such a free trump card like him roam free. Yusuko declares Zero hers, and only she is allowed to take care of him. She throws her sister a look that would make even a raid boss shiver. She warns Amaris that Zero is the kind of guy who needs to be kept on a short leash. Zero literally feels the temperature drop from all these tense vibrations. Late that night, Zero relaxes with Chibis while Gyusuku finishes her paperwork. Castle looks calm, but the atmosphere here is definitely not. Zero realizes he has stayed too long and must let the princess shine on her own. Suddenly, Lily the maid enters the room with sweets, completely ignoring his privacy. He knows the snacks are just a cover for a serious conversation. Then Lily, without unnecessary preamble, gets to the point and asks what his real plan is. Zero admits that keeping a guy like him around Gyusuku is purely bad for her PR. Lily looks relieved, glad that he really has a few brains working. She doesn't think he's a villain, but she knows he better get out of the capital. This is not only for the princess, it is for his own survival. He even says that he is completely unique because he sees spirits. Zero tries to keep a calm face, but he knows she is right. So it turns out he is not as unnoticed as he thinks because he constantly talks into the void. He asks why his abilities are a good reason to get out of there. Lilia drops a bomb. The Spirit Liberation Troop squad seems to already be inside the castle walls. If those black-robed freaks find out about Zero, they will hunt him down and corner him to the end. They have high connections and will stop at nothing to get information about spirits. Zero realizes his presence actually only puts Gyusuku in greater danger. He is genuinely impressed that she trusts him with all this information. He flicks her on the forehead and calls her an idiot for worrying so much. And if I don't believe you, then who should I believe in this world? He says this as if true main character energy is awakening in him. Lily admits she also wants him to stay, but the risk is too high. Zero gives her one last pat on the head, although she threatens to erase him for it. Under the cover of night, he begins packing gear to make a quick exit. They meet in a secret place outside the giant walls. Lily checks if he forgot anything before heading into the unknown. He leaves her with the classic "see you later" cleaner. He grins back and calls him a stinky bug as he walks away. Today, as the sun begins to rise, Zero realizes he seems to have packed a bit too lightly. He turns around to ask the spirits for advice and is hit by a shock he has never felt before. Chibai army has undoubtedly grown to incredible sizes. Now a whole huge crowd of spirits follows him, and it will definitely attract attention. Zero realizes he cannot ignore the Spirit Liberation Squad after seeing a spirit suffer. He realizes with this squad behind him, he never truly enters the queue alone. He decides to stop overthinking and simply trust his intuition. It's time to head to the city of Kalat and see what this reality really hides. Zero contemplates how long he has already been in this world while resting with Chibis. Gramps insists on his confidence, boasting about how he cooks with his own hands. Zero is not so easily impressed. He called the food completely sloppy, half-made. Gramps gets furious over the insult, and Chibis just enjoy this chaos. Gramps cuts through the nonsense and asks what Zero really wants. He notices that Zero is left alone and asks where the red-haired girl went. Zero explains that he left her near the capital, and Gramps just laughs, asking if he had a wife who fought. Fight! Our boy instantly snaps and shouts at the top of his lungs, "She is not my wife." Gramps admits that at first when he approached the window he thought Zero was a ghost. No, because Zero has few friends here, so he needs the old man's hints. Gramps is ready to help, so Zero asks if he knows anything about the black egg-shaped stone. Gramps has no clue about that rock, so Zero brings up the Spirit Liberation Troop. Turns out Gramps knows them well. They are regular customers who buy his gear. Zero is impressed. The old man sold to them such a dangerous group. Gramps just waves it off, saying these are ordinary people who want to free spirits, right? This completely confuses Zero because it contradicts everything he has heard so far. Gramps delivers a piece of wisdom. A weapon is only as bad as the one who holds it. He reminds Zero he also gave him the weapon, so he shouldn't judge. Gramps doesn't care about their ideals, but he is sure people don't need spirits, they will survive without them. Zero realizes he feels the same because he grew up in a world without magic. Zero's brain starts to stall as he tries to understand who the real bandits are. Grandpa calls him a weirdo for really thinking so deeply about the world's problems. He tells Zero to drop his biased view and decide for himself after he sees the truth. Zero takes the advice to heart. If he just sits still, he won't understand anything. Zero, thank you, Urugrams, and because of this the boy is shouted at because the old man is called Uruji. When Zero asks about the great spirits, Gramps admits he is only interested in blacksmithing. Our boy calls him a useless unit and prepares to head back into the forest. He waves to the old man and walks away, feeling that his mission has become much clearer. Zero decides to crash into his forest base to upgrade the acquired knowledge here and set off for other villages later. He decided from now on he will make his own choices. As soon as he reaches his cave, he shouts, "Home sweet home," and launches applause for the joyful chibis. Fresh air makes him feel as if he is filled with power. Suddenly, the chibis notice that something is wrong in their territory. Zero ordered them to lead, expecting some trash crowd. Instead, he crashes into a giant with a beard the size of a mountain. The stranger claims that he is the only thing that is different here. Zero does not even hesitate. He decides that this guy is a maniac who hunts chibis. He begins to beat the old man with a merciless downpour of blows. The chibi panic and beg him to stop on Ghana. Zero simply orders the deviant scoundrel to shut up while he continues swinging his strikes. Bearded shouts that he is actually the great spirit of the earth. Zero finally stops and looks at the absolute disaster he has made on his face. Even the mighty spirit is all sweaty. Zero is so threatening. Zero is already completely losing control over this gray old man who insists that he is the great spirit of the earth. This fat, foolish old man begs for mercy, although no one even moved a finger to demand proof that he is not some lustful stalker. The old man's proof is simply the claim that he looks exactly like those cute chibi flying in the air. Zero does not believe any logic about RNG ranks for even a second. He continues to break the old man with a series of blows until the chibi themselves are forced to beg him to calm down. Calming down, Zero gives the old man one last chance to explain himself without grabbing any more hands. He demands real proof that this eccentric is a high-level spirit. The old man tries to invoke higher authority, but Zero points out the obvious hole in his logic. People supposedly cannot enter this forest, yet Zero is standing here right now. Everything becomes much creepier when the old man from nowhere calls the name Zero. Immediately, Zero ranks him among the high-level stalkers, but Chibai seems to trust him, the only thing stopping Zero from deleting him. The old man explains, Zero's ability to see spirits is not due to some broken skill from that godman in glasses. It seems this skill only works when you already have a true nature in your basic characteristics, one that spirits love. This means that even before he was thrown into isekai, our guy was already a natural magnet for these small units. To make things even stranger, the old man starts reading Zero's thoughts. It's just disgusting. Zero pushes through this cringe to ask what this great spirit really wants from him. Zero looks at Black Rocks and the Spirit Liberation Troop squads and realizes he is already too deeply involved. He decides he needs to start with the right questions from the very beginning. He looks for something simple. What are spirits? The old man explains, spirits are the source of all mana in this world. Without them, this magic system practically collapses and becomes almost worthless. If the spirits disappear, the mana supply falls to zero and no one else can use magic. And here the real bombshell, the heavenly mana in this world is in disarray. Ghana. No one demands explanations for why the mana broke, but the old man orders him to conduct a speedrun investigation of this mystery himself. He tells Zero that he must find the other three great spirits, fire, wind, and water, to uncover the truth hidden behind Black Rock. And the grandfather points, hinting that there is one last secret left. The secret is the truth about who you really are. Ghana. Our guy stands rooted, stunned by the realization. He has no idea what exactly his deal is. The old man explains, Zero is unlike any other person and must find his own answer. Before the old man disappears, he reaches out and touches Zero's legendary iron pipe. Zero is confused. A strange aura hovers over his weapon. It seems the old man just inserted a legendary upgrade into his gear. He explains that the other great spirits are scattered across the entire northwest and south. When Zero gathers his power, he must give it on the altar to save Chibis. They shout Zero at him not to return, but the old man only smiles as he disappears. He leaves behind a Zero with a final farewell and looks forward to their next meeting. Zero glances at the man in glasses and at the secret he might be hiding. Now our guy is left with a huge task to save his little comrades. After a long session of theory crafting, he suddenly realizes the quest log is still almost empty. Our guy decides the only way forward is to go and find the great spirits. He decides the fastest way to clear this stage is to head south. Suddenly a wild princess appears, screaming for help. This is Gusuku, and she is chased by a whole pack of absolute giants. Zero is not even impressed. He is twisted by the fact that she is chasing such small junk from low-level mobs. She claims to have burned 10 of them, but her mana reserve is already completely zero. Zero tells her to stop pretending to be cute. This is not a slice of life. He decides to carry the team and simply beats the life out of him. Thus Oku calls him a complete muscle brain when he rushes forward. Zero ignores the goal, just grabs that heavy weapon and starts swinging it relentlessly. He orders the goblins to look only at him while he takes them down. He looks like a real villain while mocking those who survived. He is annoyed that Gyusuku provides no utility or support buffs. The remnants of the goblins finally realize, before them is the raid boss, and they begin to tremble with fear. They literally tremble while Zero just looks them straight in the eyes. He hits them with a terrifying face and says it's a joke, but the fear is real. Finally, he gives the order to Gyusuku finish the job. He unleashes a huge Aoi fire spell on the rest of the group. He looks at the crunchy remains and realizes the fight is finally over. Everything here is clean, but the real headache is just beginning. Gyusuku is smiling all the time. He thinks their teamwork was of the highest quality. Zero gives her a quick real shove and demands to explain why she is here. He tells her to get lost because he himself is trying to quickly pass this road. She insists that she has calculated everything, and Zero is by no means some simpleton to her. Zero asks if she even has permission to leave the spawn point. She shamelessly lies, claiming that the king gave her the green light to follow him. She gets right up in his face and shouts that her only plan is to follow Zero-san. Even after being pushed away, she stubbornly clings to him like a permanent party member. Zero finally gives in and tells her that they are heading south to the Great Spirit of Fire. He describes the spirit as just a perverted, hairy old man. He asked for the exact coordinates of the spirit's base. Zero only then understands he did not read the quest marker and has no idea where to go. He tries to guess that it is somewhere in the forest, but she shows the southern region is all volcanoes and minerals. He is completely overwhelmed by Zero delay and overconfidence, but without any real plan. He feels the pressure and starts snooping around looking for any hidden clues. He pulls out the map and asks the Chibai spirits for help. Then the Chibis actually react to the map and start showing what exactly is on it. They point to the exact location, and Zero immediately loses control. This is Fuse Volcano, a high-level zone, and it is too dangerous for them. But Zero ignores the difficulty spike and orders her to trust the Chubbies while they head to the volcano. How much longer will you keep nagging, Zero-san? I am completely done with this quarrel and bickering. He tells Gyusuku instead of crying, she needs to spend that energy preparing for Fuse Volcano. Asaka is sweating from fear because walking this distance on foot is a real nightmare. Zero-san points to the cold reality. No sensible carriage driver will approach the no-entry zone anyway. Our guy decides that he will just go there on foot himself while Asaka returns to the castle to get the cart. Asaka realizes that she will be left behind now, and her brain experiences a huge lag spike. She quickly steps back and declares that the cart is undergoing maintenance adjust so she doesn't have to leave it. She forces herself to laugh to cover her tracks, but Zero-san feels something is clearly wrong with the atmosphere. Strange rustling in the trees makes both of them tense up. Something massive is approaching. They both freeze and the tension in the air rises to dangerously high levels. Suddenly, an absolute giant bursts out from the thicket, a monster flower. Zero-san is stunned by how huge this damn plant is. Yusuko calls it a dead flower, a monster that usually feasts only on animal corpses. This thing clearly attacked them and begins a merciless pursuit. Yusuko says to burn it, but Zero-san hesitates. He won't dare to set fire in the forest. He decides, let them just run away because they still haven't been directly attacked. Yusaku catches a lovesick vision about eloping while they run away from the scene together. Suddenly, a vine sharply lashes out and catches Zero's leg without any warning. He is jerked into the air. He hangs like a piece of bait while the monster looms over him. He rages at the plant, trying to break free, but his blunt weapon is almost useless against these vines. He realizes he can't shake it off and reach the main body to counterattack. The plant opens its jaws and a nightmare emerges from the teeth, oozing thick slime. Zero-san understands that he is about to be eaten and orders Gyusuku, swipe that thing with magic, blow it away. He fires a massive blast, but the high IQ plant uses Zero as a shield to withstand the hit. Gyusuku screams in horror, convinced that she just eliminated her own partner. She decides there is no other way only to follow her husband into the afterlife. Before this happens, she directs her pure rage to burn the enemy to ashes. The relentless firestorm tears through the space, and Zero-san's voice miraculously cuts through all this chaos. Yusuko still plays her tragic heroine role, promising to join him very soon in the great beyond. Zero-san breaks free from the state and, complaining that his whole body hurts terribly, suddenly comes to his senses. He thanks her for acting more gently, believing that she held back her full power to save him. Yusuko, with an empty expression, admits that she doesn't remember at all how she gave herself an easy life. She tries to turn it into a joke, saying she was simply focused on killing the monster. She gives him a sly smile as the tension after the battle finally subsides. Zero-san actually shows rare gratitude and says, "Thank you for saving me." Dusko was beaming when he was acknowledged, and Zero-sen thanked his armor for withstanding friendly fire. He looked at his chart and battered gear, realizing how close he was to game over. He understands, from now on, they need to act much more carefully as a team. Zero-san decides his dumb weapon for such clashes is a complete failure. He decides that he needs a nada knife to easily slice through these plant mobs. They decide to visit the nearest town to rest and upgrade their equipment before the real trial near the volcano begins. Zero literally smashes in the heat, and the fire spirits throw themselves a full feast. Grace explains the entire area was completely bombed by the power of the fused volcano, turning the south into a tropical biome. Due to the temperature, the whole area is literally flooded with stone and fire Chibai keeps throwing endlessly. Our guy didn't waste a second, immediately signs a new contract with one of the little ones. He starts to be gnawed by the thought, is there even a limit to his party if he just keeps collecting them endlessly? Grace says that since Zero is a user of fire magic, this heat shouldn't affect his HP bar at all. Although he sweats from tension, Zero insists that it's just male pride and refuses to admit that it's hard for him. Grace shares some of her water and notes that her mana efficiency is poor because she uses an attribute that is not her main specialization. They have been continuously wiping this road for 10 days. Now Grace survives only thanks to a certain special alcoholic medicine that Zero got for her. Zero gives his Chibai a barely noticeable slap on the head as soon as they finally approach the destination. They arrive in the mining town of Fura, a place where people go to either quickly get rich or fall into a trap and be deceived. Grace thinks the locals are scary, then jokes, supposedly they are nowhere near as frightening as what aura Zero radiates. All our guy wants is to find a high-class tavern and finally eat properly after this exhausting long journey. But RNG is definitely set against them. Today they are intercepted immediately. It turns out Amari's found them, and Grace looks as if a world boss just appeared right in front of her. Zero sees Amari's is furiously boiling. Grace made a pass move and secretly slipped out of the castle without permission. He tries to turn everything into light chatter, but Amari's is in no mood to talk at all. She draws her blade and looks as if she is ready to erase Zero from the save file immediately without any further attempts. She calls him a fool for thinking he could pull that off and avoid punishment. Suddenly, a huge explosion breaks the silence and Grace has to drag Zero away from the danger zone. They break into a run with all their might for their own lives, while Zero demands to find out exactly what trouble he has been dragged into. Maris yells at them, convinced that it was Zero who provoked the magical attack. He was simply twisted out of shape because someone dared to use magic within the city limits. No screams in response, "It's not me," because he literally can't even cast magic. Just when it seems that everything is over, a carriage manages to come around the corner. It's Lily at the wheel. Says Grace and Zero, "Get in quickly before they catch you." Lily doesn't understand why Zero is even there, but tells them to move him because Amari's is closing the distance. Zero barely manages to grab onto the back of the carriage as it starts moving. Amari's is left in the dust shouting, "I will kill you," while they escape. Chibis just sit and watch as the chaos unfolds while the carriage flies away. Grace tells Zero to move back, she will handle the rear line herself. Powerful magical wall rises, blocking the pursuit, and the whole scene suddenly looks like a high-stakes robbery. They have only 30 minutes to escape. They break through the southern gate and Zero suddenly realizes, now they officially look like a bunch of terrorists. Finally, they enter the cave to hide from the search party. Lily immediately launches the burning Zero, calls it a stinky bug, and scolds Grace for leaving her behind. And the vibe becomes incredibly heavy as they prepare for the grand lore. Lily drops the loudest bomb, "Zero, you are suspected of attempting to overthrow the royal family." Zero completely freezes from the accusation. Our guy's reputation is completely destroyed. He was branded as a top-level criminal overnight. Zero completely breaks down after learning he is accused of treason. Who's somewhere in the background just keeps giggling while our guy has a full meltdown over the misunderstanding. He realizes it was she who first dragged him into this trouble. It's a tough day when your own summons tease you and make you look like a criminal. Ilya throws him a bomb. Princess Amari's is hunting him alone right now. Zero thinks he can just chat and get away with it, a pretty relaxed guy. Girls look at him as if he has really lost his mind. And Lily explains, these accusations are just a cover to get to him. Beginning, and Grace finally dares to pour out the whole truth about why she ran away from the castle. She explains that this is exactly why she had to flee. Turns out that in the capital, some top players know that Zero sees Chibis. They are not looking for a conversation, they want to catch him to use his power. It seems Amari's is too dumb a muscular type to know about the conspiracy. Grace tried to warn her sister, but the villain just jumped ahead and rushed without listening. Zero wonders how he leaked his own secret. Lily flies at him with reality. He constantly talks to empty air in public places. The army of spiritual liberation has effectively penetrated the highest echelons of the server. We're talking about how the commander and the minister pull the strings. Zero has no memory left of these NPCs. And as soon as they describe the face of the gorilla and the face of the crowd, the minister, everything finally falls into place. He is curious about what exact intrigue these old men managed to pull off. Villains are hunting for an incredible power boost. It appears only when several spirits are cemented together. Zero surveys his army of chibis and realizes he is essentially a walking cheat code. He stops the endless doom scrolling and understands both girls were just trying to save him. Yusuko begins to cry. She had no idea he would be accused of treason. Zero strokes her head to make her understand she is not to blame for anything. Lily begins to feel that she is a useless minor character. Grace does not accept this and pulls her into an embrace. Grace tells Lily to drop this maid image and just be herself. Now they are a squad and rank no longer matters. Lily asks what the next move will be as the sun sets over the mountain. Zero does not intend to let Amari's capture him. That bulky fool would definitely protect him. Girls immediately veto that suicidal mission. Zero knows he has no right to allow his friends to be banned because of him. He does not take his eyes off the giant volcano in the distance. He decides that the next quest is a speedrun straight to Fuse Volcano. This is a forbidden zone. Knights will not dare to draw attention there. Lily thinks he is an idiot for going into such a towering zone. Not a single smug smile. A great fire spirit awaits at the end of the dungeon. The squad crashes into a dead end at the base of Fuse Volcano. This is completely forbidden territory. Zero realizes that the carriage in Zero has no off-road stats at all, so he will have to leave it right here. Mud, almost no grass left because the environment is literally an oven. While the carriage moves backward, our guy is already drenched in sweat. The passive heat is consuming him from the inside. Lily is essentially a human air conditioner. She uses ice magic to keep everything cool. Zero tries to catch a bit of that refreshing breath, but behaves like a complete serf, like a true sneak. Asuk dies of shame, and Zero just wants to survive this heat. He decides, instead of a slow game, a speedrun straight to the very top of the volcano. Lily won't tolerate his nonsense and quickly physically puts him in his place for being a mishkara. Suddenly the chibis catch a strange signal in the air. They point to a specific place as if they stumbled upon a hidden quest marker. Girls think that Zero has finally lost his mind because he is staring motionless at a truly steep cliffside. He pretends as if spirits are whispering secrets to him. Before they could start arguing, he begins climbing the rock wall like a professional. Finally reaching the top, he looks as if he has only 1 HP left. The team surveys the summit and there is a lonely wasteland without a single soul. Lily notes that it is a completely worthless necrosist and no loot is visible. Suddenly the entire map starts trembling as if a huge boss is about to appear any moment. Beneath their feet the ground begins to crack, revealing a huge pit. Zero does not try to draw attention to himself and orders the girls to run. But it is already too late and the entire platform collapses into the abyss. They plummet headlong into free fall, with debris raining around like rain. Zero wakes up feeling as if he was just twisted into a knot by a top raid boss. For a moment he is overwhelmed by nostalgia, how he first met his chibi companions. He suddenly snaps out of it and checks the spirits. They look completely depressed. He tells them not to worry, because this time they just got unlucky with the RNG. He looks around and sees Gasuku and Lily looking as if they were just deleted. They eventually wake up, but Lily is scared to death when she sees blood on her hands. Gasuku is puzzled. Despite the fall, she didn't feel anything. It's literally a miracle that after such a fall, they all haven't become ghosts yet. It turned out that the chibi pulled off a professional healer's move. They used medicine to keep them alive. Asuku is overwhelmed by a wave of unprovoked depression. She is actually mutilating herself because she can't see spirits and can't thank them herself. Lily ruins the moment again by calling Zero a larva because they are still stuck in the pit. They realize they ended up inside a volcano and there's no way out. They can't climb back up. Zero spots at the end of the tunnel a barely noticeable light. They follow the path and find a huge cave hidden deep underground. Yusuko is stunned. The temperature here is so high that for her fire resistance, it is already too much. Zero ignores the heat. He feels a gigantic presence hiding behind the shadows. He steps forward and demands that the great fire spirit show itself. The room holds a dead silence, and because of this, Zero looks like a complete clown in front of the girls. He orders them to shut up while he tries to maintain his dignity. Suddenly, the entire cave explodes with a terrifying aura. Zero realizes that he has actually pulled the boss out of the brackets right for the strike. From the depths of the flames rises a gigantic obsidian dragon. This is the very absolute monster they were looking for, and it is already ready to wipe out the whole party. The battle of the century has just begun and a colossal dragon has appeared, answering Zero's call. Girls immediately sweat with fear and try to flee. This absolute monster roars so loudly that any lower-level player's hands automatically reach to delete the game. Zero does not even blink calls to check if this monster is really the spirit of the Great Fire. His team thinks he has lost his mind trying to talk to the raid boss. The dragon actually responds sounds offended, as if outraged that some pathetic man is stepping on its territory. Decides to skip the dialogue and immediately go to the game over screen. Lily refuses to be a trash mob and steps forward to protect the squad. Grace prepares her strongest cryomagic, hoping to reduce the fire damage that is about to hit them. It's just a crazy strike. Everyone is thrown back as if they stepped on a mine. Zero tries to check his squad, but Gyusuku gets caught in crossfire. A giant explosion shakes the area. The dragon's power hits the target dead on. Everything is clear on her face. It's a complete fiasco. Zero squeezes speed to the limit. He knows his partner is about to disconnect. Even with fire resistance, taking that explosion head-on is a death sentence. Pill settles on the stage, a complete total party kill. Our guy, in despair, reaches out to her to save her before her health bar drops to 0. The maid screams at them, fearfully thinking the worst has already happened. The narration warns, I am sure that person will not have a single bone left. Meticulously, Zero finds Gyusuku alive and pulls her closer amid what happened. He is completely baffled. Why doesn't he even have a scratch? Even the dragon whines on the edge of anger and demands an answer. Why does his own power protect the human? Suddenly, hundreds of tiny spirits appear out of nowhere to help our guy. These chibis are everywhere. They create a real wall of protection around them. Zero finally puts it all together. These little ones are the true MVPs. A new opponent appears and orders the dragon to surrender immediately. It is the battle spirit of the Great Fire itself, clad in armor, that rings with its power. The dragon cannot believe that a highest-level spirit sides with a human. The armed spirit orders the dragon to take a closer look what Zero really is. The dragon carefully examines and finally notices the hidden potential of the main hero. Decides to grant the request and leaves the territory without unnecessary drama. The giant monster flies away and the group remains in peace, at least for some time. The girls finally stop panicking when the Great Fire Spirit officially introduces itself. Zero is shocked. Ordinary people are not supposed to see such a high-level entity. He is gnawed by the thought, does this mean everyone sees the other lustful spirits he deals with? Leaving jokes for later, Zero turns and bows to the tiny spirits for their support. One of the chibi begins to glow with a strange dim light that fades in waves. He tells Zero that there is something he must know before everything disappears. The baby vanishes, leaving behind a mysterious black stone. Zero intercepts the loot and stops, wondering which exact trophy he just got. The girls also do not understand where this stone came from at all. The Spirit of Fire explains, this stone is a spirit that fell into a deep sleep. Spirits are created from magical power and usually only allow users to borrow it. He searched through the entire battery just so the Zero wouldn't be crushed by the dragon. When the little one sacrifices himself to save them, the blow to the whole squad is inhuman. The atmosphere thickens as the Spirit of Fire prepares to drop something else. He asks Zero a question that changes the whole game. What is the goal of the Spirit Liberation Army? He demands as the tension reaches its limit. The Great Fire Spirit demands to know Zero's true intentions, but our guy is clearly not in the mood to talk right now. He could no longer stop thinking about Chibai. It exhausted the mana and turned into a cold black stone. He makes it clear the goals of the Spirit Liberation Army mean absolutely nothing to him. Even when the spirit asks why someone would set a Chibai free, Zero simply shrugs as if it doesn't concern him. Spirit begins to fade, leaving Zero alone with his thoughts. He tightens his grip on the weapon and only then realizes there are no more answers, only questions. Before disappearing completely, the spirit gives him a new task, to head west, meet the Great Spirit of the Wind, and find out who he really is. Time has come, the spirit warns as it erases itself from this zone. Zero is boiling. That huge spirit just yawned and vanished without explaining the lore. Grace tries to focus on him, but right now he is in such a mood. He looks at the fading spirit in his hand and cannot understand why someone would sacrifice themselves for a guy like him. He is overwhelmed. The little one spent all his drops of strength just to save him. He feels like he is a complete trash mob for this to have happened. And those other chibis come closer and start comforting him, reminding him that he is not alone. Zero realizes sniffling and poking around idly won't fix his RNG. Right there he swears that he will never again let any chibi turn into a black stone. He begins to piece together this puzzle, having no idea whether these stones are somehow connected to the glitches in the world's magic. Lack of information shakes his calm. He unleashes his anger, mercilessly crushing a nearby stone. He looks like a real maniac. Blood flows down his face, and the girls are overwhelmed with complete panic shock. Zero decides that right now they will do a speedrun to the west. Before they could move, Amari's and her knights appear to block the way. She has the same frightening commander aura and demands to know what the great fire spirit told them. Zero does not back down and tells her directly that next they will meet the wind spirit. Amari's is sweating as if doused with buckets, trying to uncover the truth about how spirits turn into stones. Zegog turns back and says that he is just as helpless as she is and is simply doing everything he can. Grace finally steps forward to become a bridge between them. She throws in a huge lore bomb. Spirits do not feed on humans, they actually lend humanity their own magic until they die. There is no process in the fact that the whole system is rigged against Chibis. He places his hand on Grace's head to calm her down. He tells Amari's that he doesn't care about rumors or being called a kidnapper. He radiates terrible pressure, having promised to smash anyone who tries to stop him. Amari's just laughs, revealing that a fresh bounty has already been announced on him. Grace suddenly experiences a great epiphany. Her brain finally clicks. She understands her sister is actually looking for an excuse to get involved again and leave together. Amara starts blushing and insists that she can help with many things if she joins the party. Knights cannot believe that their burly commander behaves so cutely. Grace teases her sister by showing that she just led a squad to arrest them. She makes it clear that she travels with Zero not because she is held hostage but because she wants to. Grace officially invites her sister to join their journey. Amari switches to caring sister mode and promises to protect Grace to the ends of the earth. Lily still believes she is a real gorilla, but Zero figures who have absolute unit in the team won't help against the chivalric order. When the sun begins to set, the group finds a way out of this area. Amara sends her knights back to the castle to go scouting with the squad. Zero gazes into the horizon. He knows the real trial is just beginning. Their path is set. They head west, meet the spirit of the wind, and rescue Chibis. The vice captain says how everything got tough in the castle as soon as the group disappeared. It turns out Amari's was framed for treason. That's why her elite squad mobilized so quickly. Zero is truly impressed by their loyalty. He sees these are solid guys, but the mood changes instantly as they declare they are the official fan club of Amari's. They promise to stick by her even when she is a complete dumb cow. Then a real twist flies into the game. Actually, they want her to mock them. Zero breaks out in a sweat of fear as he realizes he is surrounded by a huge club of perverts. The soldiers prepare to move back to the castle to draw attention and protect the king. They entrust Amari's safety to Zero, who responds with a confident thumbs up. Amari's completely breaks the patterns with triumphant exclamations that she can protect herself, and she spits out, "He is a maggot." The team decides their next main mission is to the west. Gyusuko says that, supposedly, the great wind spirit is right there. The spirits point to a suspicious building on the map, a complete dungeon. Grace explains, rumors say that a god lives in the western desert. She confirms this is the great god of wind and it is him they need to find. Zero is already going crazy because the hidden building is surprisingly obvious. He cannot believe how stupid this Gyusuko is, especially because of the map. Our guy understands there is no limit to this stupidity, but he must move on. They officially set course to search for that very great god of wind. Grace suggests first returning to the Citadel, finally rest properly. Zero is shocked. He is ready to speedrun the next part of the journey, but some soldier reminds him there is a huge bounty on Zero's head right now. Even worse, the princess actually crushed the city to dust earlier. The soldiers suggest running to the nearest onsen to restore their stats. The idea of a hot spring shocks the girls completely. Zero and his army of spirits cannot believe it either. Such a hidden gem is right nearby. The group finally finishes the long-awaited rest under the moonlight. Zero is fully charged, accelerated, and ready to return to work. While he is ready to move, the rest of the company looks completely thrown off course by stress. Amari's is already whining about a warm bed and proper food. Zero does not take this into account and reminds the villain that he and Lily do all the hard work in the kitchen. He starts picking on her, but Grace immediately defends her lady from the insect. The nanny finally stops the quarrel. She orders the girls to get into the carriage, and she herself sends Zero to engage with the patrol and draw attention to himself. Zero reminds everyone that they are not on the planned fuel trip because they are literally fugitives accused of treason. He sets out to scout the territory, although he is clearly boiling inside that he was assigned as the group's messenger. While he walks, he tries to digest the crazy lore dump they just received. The goal is simple: to meet the great spirit of the wind and figure out who he really is. Suddenly, Zero feels someone prowling in the shadows and sharply turns around. An old grandmother essentially teleported right behind him and gave him a terrible heart attack. She surprisingly is calm. She invites him to sit down and chat a little. Zero's internal alarm bells ring immediately as soon as she says his name, as if it were a usual thing. He tries to recognize her face and wonders if she is just some random seller from that meeting long ago. Grandmother laughs and immediately reads his thoughts, ordering him to think even more persistently about why she is here. She warns him caution can even help recognize a top player as soon as he sees him. Without a single smile, he understood. Such a feat is only possible for one type of NPC capable of such level of hacks. The two freeze in tense silence, and finally, understanding clicks in our guy's mind. Am I telling the truth, great spirit of the wind? He finally asks, directly exposing her. Out she confirms his guess, teasing him for actually being clever enough to figure it out. Zero gets confused, asks why she went for a walk instead of camping near her temple. She insists that technically she is still at the temple, and in Zero's brain everything freezes hard. He cannot comprehend how she pulls off this trick of double presence. He starts yelling furiously at the mysterious grandmother for speaking in circles like every other great spirit. He demands to find out if something happened at her home base. He throws him an almost correct guess, and this distorts him even more. And then she drops a bomb. The Spirit Liberation Army has already entered the temple of the Great Wind God. It seems she is the easiest to track, so they made her the main target. Zero assumes they want to free the spirits, but the truth is much more suspicious. The enemy's plan is to drop a giant barrier to lock the temple shut. This will trap the spirits inside and at the same time keep everyone else out. Zero thinks this is an incredible pain. He can't understand the logic of this move. He wonders if they are simply trying to keep people completely away from the spirits. If they do that, they will cut themselves off from the spirits too, and that makes no sense at all. Grandmother turns around and asks Zero what he was really doing during his whole journey. He tells her they were just hanging out, eating, and traveling together like a normal party. She hits him with deep philosophy, warning, don't pretend someone is good just because you were told so. Zero understands she needs him to stop being a sheep and start thinking for himself. Before he can even ask anything, grandmother starts to run away, disappears in a cloud of smoke. She leaves him one last warning about the barrier before ordering him to hurry to the temple. Zero remains standing alone, irritated by the mysterious exit. Despite the confusion, he knows it's time to speed up and run through the temple to find out what is really going on. The Great Wind Spirit turns out to be that strange old lady from that time. The Spirit Liberation Army is now setting up a barrier near the Wind God Shrine, so the group has to bypass the village and immediately jump into the fight. Ray still cannot come to terms with the fact that Zero sees spirits, although no one else can. He believes that this is all just because he is a person from another world. Zero is not sure that this is the only reason. He has a lot of questions about his own power, and he needs to find that old spirit to learn the truth. Finally, they reach the shrine and notice the same trash mobs they had encountered earlier. Girls are already ready to rush to the entrance, but Zero raises his hand to stop them. He is afraid that if they use the most powerful magic, they will accidentally destroy the sanctuary. Before they even manage to argue about the plan, the cultists notice them and demandingly ask who is there. Zero heats them with reproaches and accuses the girls of being too loud. Because of this, they lost the element of surprise. He tries to convince them that negotiations should be the first option. He steps forward and, smiling in a friendly way, orders the girls to watch how he handles this. Since Zero looks like a hardened hardcore hooligan, his attempt to be friendly looks like a complete nightmare. The soldiers begin to tremble with fear and scream that he is a devil, then immediately rush into attack. Zero gets annoyed and grabs them in a moment, muttering that he just wanted to talk. He was truly hurt that they called an ordinary person like him a demon. Within a few seconds, the guards are tied up and beaten until they fall silent. Laura calls him an absolute scoundrel for putting on such a terrible face to lure out a favorable move. Grace thinks that this is just Zero acting like Zero, but they realize even more enemies await them near the sanctuary. The remnants of cultists begin to chant mantras, high-level earthly magic. The earth starts to hum and shift as the spell takes shape. A giant golem rises from the ground like a true absolute monster. Grace is shocked these guys can really pull off such an expensive summon. Zero is unimpressed and thinks that this big pile of stones looks so dumb that you could just walk past it. Grace warns him the golem has zero delay and it moves many times faster than he can imagine. He is right, the monster lunges forward with terrifying speed. Both Grace and Lara jump into the zone, unleashing a barrage of magic and sword strikes on the beast. They manage to smash the golem's body into fragments. Zero thinks the fight is over, but Grace tells the fool to keep his eyes wide open. Stones flare with light and begin to vibrate through the ground. As long as there is something to pull from the earth, this mechanism has infinite regenerative endurance. Zero the Evil calls such regeneration a complete fraud. Golem does not wait until he shuts up from grumbling and unleashes a heavy attack. Zero barely manages to dodge the blow, but the cloud of dust knocks the breath out of him. Golem catches him by surprise and with a direct hit pushes him so hard that he flies away. Zero is already sweating, realizes that his usual physical attacks against that stone body are completely blocked. He himself cannot use magic, so he is stuck in a very bad position. He scans past the monster and notices the summoner standing next to the sanctuary. He understands if the mages are removed, the golem will most likely crumble. The problem is that the golem is a sturdy guardian. He blocks any path to the backline fighters. Zero realizes to win, he needs to do something with magic. He releases a dark smile and decides to take a risk to make a move that could cost everything. He tells the spirit lady to wait for him because now he is going all out. Maku is drenched in cold sweat because this golem is a real monster. He needs a moment of mercy to buy time and prepare a counter-trap. He understands that this is a reckless bet, but she believes in our guy. She sharpens her blade, looking like a true badass before plunging into the thick of the fight. He doesn't even flinch while staring straight into the giant's eyes. Grace charges forward solo while the rest watch as she draws aggro. Maku turns to Gyusuku and asks if she can crank the temperature of her fire magic to the maximum. Then he glances at Lily and orders her to prepare a huge block of ice. Lily is confused but says she can do it if someone stops the monster's movement. He doesn't have time for a boring lore report, so they just have to trust the process. Grace leans back and grumbles that golem regeneration is some serious pay-to-win junk. Maku orders her to lure the monster to the mages and cut off its leg. He smiles crookedly. For a top player, this is a walk in the park. He understands those dressed in vestments, the eccentrics, use the golem as a living shield to cover themselves. Grace thinks they are running away, but Amaka has a much more insidious plan in mind. They do not retreat, now they will remove this from the server. They split up to flank the beast from two sides. The mages begin to panic. They suddenly realize that the squad is encircling them. Grace shouts for Amaka to get ready faster, it's time to finish this. She lands a massive blow and completely breaks the golem's leg. Now it's the mage's turn to feel the pressure. Yusuku invites Lusa to unleash a torrent of fire that would make a dragon envious. The heat is so insane that it almost cripples Amaka's own jacket. Billy steps forward, ready to give a cold rebuff. He throws a giant, glacier-like chunk of ice directly into the molten lava. As soon as the ice hits the heat, everything ignites with sharpness. Thermal shock causes a massive reaction. It triggers a huge explosion that rumbles and shakes the entire area. A giant cloud of steam and debris covers the battlefield. The girls coughed through the smoke and wondered if they had really cleared the stage. Something is still clinking inside that huge chasm. One of the mages is still clinging to life. He looks like he's about to rage quit. He screams that he will never forgive them, they broke his plan. Maku just stupidly stomps his boot on the head and ends the dialogue there. When the pilot was knocked out, the golem finally crumbled to dust. The road to the temple is finally free of trash mobs. Lily asks how he knew the explosion would happen, and he basically admits he just guessed. The squad heads to the entrance of the dark temple. Maku warns everyone to keep their eyes peeled, the boss might still be inside. The little spirits huddle behind and try to keep their composure. Suddenly, Amako steps right into trouble and almost breaks his nose. Turns out there is a hidden barrier blocking their path. They're stuck outside, staring at an invisible wall. It breaks their speedrun. Zero hits a literal invisible wall just as he tries to follow the group into the Wind God Shrine. The girls realize this high-level barrier was specially built to block both people and spirits. Since it's already hard enough to just force their way through, the team decides to split up and look for another entrance. Our guy is ready to just camp here, but the Chibis start whining and stubbornly insist they must get inside immediately. Zero understands that simply ignoring his little companions won't work, so he decides to put the Chibis first and find a way through the entrance doors. Slowly but inevitably, he pushes open the heavy doors of the temple, holding firmly at the ready no matter what kind of trash mob awaits on the other side. Instead of the boss, he notices a suspicious figure in a hood standing next to the Great Spirit of the Wind. Cloaked man looks irritated at himself and mutters that a stronger barrier should have been placed at the gate to keep people out. He sharply turns around with a gleaming smile that reeks of a final boss and clutches his chest. He immediately brands our guy as a zero, as if he is about to burst with pure excitement. This guy introduces himself as Koya from the Spirit Liberation Army and tries to show that they are on the same side as you. Zero does not believe this friendly gesture for a second and immediately confronts him. He is the one who put up a huge reward for his head. Koya tries to pass it off as a mistake by the council, but Zero can immediately see this guy is his complete opposite in every way. Koya admitted he came here not just for nothing to make a contract with the Great Spirit of the Wind, but the Elder refused because the Great Spirits do not play by human rules. Despite the fact that the spirit bent him, he has the audacity to ask Zero to join his organization. Zero pushes back with a firm no and tells him to get lost because he only needs to talk to the old lady. Koya's smile stays fixed on his face, but Zero notices in his eyes is a dead, icy emptiness as if he is looking at an insect. He claims that the true goal of the army is to liberate and take control of the spirits in order to save the world. Zero's inner anxiety flares up the moment he hears this word control. He begins to lose self-control as the tension in the room reaches its limit. Poe explains the world today is a complete bug because spirits are slowly disappearing from existence itself. He pulls out a glowing spherical grain and explains that it is actually a spirit egg or magic stone. When a spirit burns all its mana, it returns to this stone form to recover over several years. Zero understands this means that spirits have a reset timer, but there is a huge catch. People mine these stones to use them as batteries for magical tools. Essentially, they kill the spirits without even letting them return. Black magic ore is especially dangerous because it aggressively sucks mana from anyone who touches it. Poe explains that once these spirit eggs become transparent, people start treating them as expensive trophies. They drain power for decorations and equipment, and Zero realizes this is simply a slow genocide of the spirit race. At first, Zero thinks that the Spirit Liberation Army might actually be good if they are trying to stop this. Then Kuya lays out his twisted logic. They want to take the spirits under monopoly, so only authorized ones will be able to use them. There are no demands to find out what he really means by control. Koya's plan is to create a world where contracts are allowed only for those who follow the army's rules. He insists that this will stop the persecution of spirits and bring a false peace to the world. The Great Wind Spirit looks at him and says to Zero, he and Kuya are two sides of the same coin because both are loved by the spirits. Zero felt extremely disgusted by this comparison and refuses to be part of the scheme to conquer the world. He understands Koya just wants to use the spirits as a cheat code to rule over people. Our guy finally snaps. He shouts that Kuya is just a fat fool who wants to take control of the source of all magic so that everyone bows to him. And since magic is needed for daily life, whoever holds the spirits in their hands effectively holds the whole world on a hook. People had no choice but to follow the army if they wanted to keep the light. Zero screams that Koya does not care about what the Hibis really want. He hates Koya to the core and makes it clear that imposing one's beliefs on others is never the right move. Koya understands that his recruitment speech has failed, so he decides to temporarily retreat and not engage in battle. Zero forces him to fall silent, swearing to create a world where Chibai can live peacefully without being used as tools. The Great Spirit of the Wind warns Zero, if the world sides with Kuya's methods, everything will tilt toward that dark future path. She gives him the next quest marker and tells him to head north to meet the Great Water Spirit. She gifts him a new legendary item, assuring him that he will soon comprehend the true scale of his power. While his journey to meet the rest of the Great Spirits continues, the stakes have never been higher. Zero knows sooner or later he will have to decide which future he will fight for. He clenches his chest, determined to find a way to save everyone without becoming a tyrant. Zero is boiling with rage over the screening test he just passed. The old woman tells him that the next quest marker is far to the north. Suddenly, a furious roar thunders from the entrance, forcing Zero to leap away on the move. Grandmother simply watches him leave and wonders which path he will choose in this chaotic speedrun of life. Zero finds his party near the entrance and they just sour. Mari's looks like she's ready to throw a boss-level combo at him for getting lost alone. Even the healer girl has such a terrifying smile, it means your HP is about to drop to 0. They are already fed up with his solo round antics and want to punish him themselves. Realizing that he is about to be taken down, our guy manages to activate his ultimate. Girls have no idea what strategy he is preparing there. He strikes them with a legendary 90-degree kowtow, begging for mercy. He thinks he has all 200 IQ, like no one can stay mad at a sincere apology for long. He barely twitches in his smile inside, thinking he managed to outsmart the fight. MRSC pierces the cap through and loudly exposes him for the fake. He tries to keep up appearances while Chibai desperately sweats in fear in the background. The little spirits literally cry from the colossal tension in the air. Finally, the priestess lets him off the hook, but Zero looks as if his soul has already completely left his body. Then they find a guy from the Liberation Army. He is just wandering near the ruins. It turns out Amari's used her muscle logic and simply physically smashed the magical barrier with blows. This guy couldn't even escape. His entire squad was already lying unconscious. Zero doesn't understand why some supposedly high-ranking mage couldn't just remove the spells from his own barrier. That's when the villain drops a huge lore bomb. He is exactly like Zero and cannot use a single drop of magic. Our Master of Ceremonies is the same, a rare player loved by the spirits. This is the very guy Zero ran into when he met the Great Wind Spirit. Amari's immediately draws her blade and is ready to delete this guy from the server. Zero has to intervene and stop the execution before things get even more complicated. This guy is completely scared. He is trembling from that blonde with the terrifying aura. No promises that he will bury that man, but he says now is not the time. This guy starts whining about being buried, but Zero just yells at him, focus. He asked that guy if he really seriously intends to save the spirits. Zero admits he hates him to the bone and wants to smear him with honey and stab him with swarms of wasps. Still, he can't say that this guy's goals are anything but complete rubbish. Zero decides his next move is north to meet the Great Water Spirit. He orders that guy to go with them as their new guide. Girls go crazy over this recruitment choice. Zero just punches him in the face, so he finally calms down. He says that although he himself is no saint, he cares too much about those Chibai to let them suffer. He yells at that guy for using the spirits for his own benefit. Zero flashes and specifically a smile. He calls the guy little brat and makes it clear he needs to know his place. Everyone at the party was stunned by Zero's sudden dominant energy emission. Now he is officially a bound hostage and not even sure he will keep his word. The girls agree if he tries any trick, they will simply get rid of him. Zero does not look at the bigger picture. He knows it's better if they stick together. With the new friend in tow, the squad sets course for the north. The girl is extremely exhausted. Her prisoner tries to disappear without a trace every time. Zero doesn't even strain. He has Chibis watching 24/7. It turns out Lily actually locked the entire perimeter with traps, and the sounds of that poor guy being smeared somewhere in the distance are pure music to them. Now they were making their way north to a place called Zili Pond to find a high-ranking water spirit. The guy finally finds a runner hanging upside down like a complete clown. Zero flies in with Yo Brat, but the guy is too busy crying over his life choices to respond. As soon as he was lowered, the dude somehow manages to change clothes without any lag. He realizes his old Spirit Liberation Army uniform is now just a giant target on his back. The maid just wants to bury that guy and be done with it, but Zero believes he could actually be useful for the party's inventory. Besides, Zero knows if this guy tries to troll them again, someone nearby will gladly delete his save file. Amaku literally hangs in the background with a deadly aura, making any pro player start sweating as if they already fled the match. To prove he's not just some trash mob, the guy whips up a whole spread of pancakes like something straight out of a high-budget dacha video. Girls dig into the food and have to admit, the taste is truly top-notch. Not a smile at first, his plan to outsource household chores works perfectly. He even throws a compliment to the maid and her panic shatters completely because of it. After he is officially tamed, he starts listing his utility stats, how he manages carriages and prepares exquisite dishes. Since Zero hasn't invested any points in those life skills, he decides to keep him close. The man starts acting as if he is some legendary prince unit, while the rest of the squad just looks at him with cold condemnation. Essentially, he admits, at home he is a real monster at housework, but in real fighting completely useless. Grace again redirects attention to the main quest and asks how things are progressing on the way to Zelipond. Maku remembers how she once trained there, but now she has received bad news about the area. Turns out the path is blocked by a huge, disgusting quagmire. Zero immediately falls down because wading through mud is the worst kind of environmental debuff. The man explains the detour will take months, so they will have to break through the mud directly. Grace tries to look tough, but it is clear how hard it is for her to stay on her feet in the mud. The prince tries to refuse because he does not want his royal outfit to get dirty. Amaka does not even listen and simply drags him into the mud the moment he manages to take a step. He Even the maid looks at the swamp as if she would rather fight a world-class boss than step there even with a foot. The trek is a continuous harsh meat grinder. The environment drains everyone's endurance to the last strip. Grace breathes heavily but does not give up. She wants to prove that she has leveled up. Suddenly, the maid notices a potential safe zone ahead. Lily found a small patch of dry land where they can finally rest. Prince Guy tries to be a gentleman and extends his hand to Grace, but she rewards him with a look of pure disgust. He sharply resets and begs him to take her in his arms. Amaka threatens to fold that guy as soon as he even looks at her sister, and Zero just sighs and accepts the task. He picks up Grace, but walking through the swamp while carrying another player is almost like playing on hard mode. Every step is a struggle, and Grace does not make it easier because she moves back and forth. As soon as Zero almost reaches the landing platform, the ground beneath him suddenly shifts. The maid screams a warning. She realizes that what Zero stepped on was not solid ground at all. A colossal shadow looms over them as a giant snake head emerges from the swamp. It turns out the rock that Zero used as a lever was actually the back of the level boss serpent. When everything was already heating up, from the dark, stinking swamp comes this huge snake-like crowd of trash. Our guy immediately realizes they are in terrible trouble. Dodging with knees in the mud is almost impossible. Amaris is not in the mood at all. She laughs at the fact that they are almost sitting ducks and they are about to be eaten. Lily cannot stand this and slaps her to make her come to her senses while Zero checks if Gyusuku can move at all. It turned out the poor girl was completely stuck in the mud, so in this fight she is a total burden. Zero is sweating bullets, looking for any support to finally respond and start the fight. He is frozen and looks straight into the beast's mouth, trying to come up with a plan together with his little spirit helper. Suddenly, a gas lights up under their feet. The light turns on and they realize what is right beneath them. He barks at Lily to use her ice magic and freeze the swamp. She thinks he is asking for a world tier spell and grumbles that she can't freeze everything indiscriminately, and he clarifies, he just needs a solid platform under their feet. The plan is simple. Lily freezes a small patch for support, and Zero plays bait to lure aggro away from the snake. Then a man in a cloak joins in and suggests, let them just freeze the snake itself. He said it. Lily calls him a complete fool and explains that the mana cost would be just insane. Even if they managed to pull it off, such a massive snake part would just tense up and break the ice instantly. Despite all the logic, he just smiles and asks Lily to try anyway. Lily decides to act, orders Zero to take on the defense of the others while she focuses herself. Zero helps Gyusuku to stand up and prepares the squad to move to a safer zone. They quickly rush away, trying to gain some distance between themselves and the monster. Zero still doubts and wonders if this pair can really handle a boss-level threat, and with only one spell at that. The guy in the cloak simply tells Lily to stay calm and strike the snake with her best magic. Lily shouts stop, and as soon as she releases her energy, Zero's jaw drops to the floor. This is not some minor freezing magic. A huge dome of absolute zero bursts from her hands. The entire square is covered with a dazzling glow and a crystal-sharp icy thunder that scatters into thousands of sparkling crystals. Zero can hardly believe his eyes as the swamp turns into an Arctic wasteland. When the fog clears, the giant snake is completely trapped inside a massive ice column. Lily is completely stunned by her own result, and the guy in the cloak just smiles as if it was part of a speedrun. She knows for sure her stats are not that high, and realizing this, she understands that it was not only about her strength. Zero watches them from afar and puts together everything about what just happened. There is no time to analyze because Zero understands the danger is not over yet. He shouts for them to get away as huge chunks of ice begin to fall from the sky. While others panic, the boy in the cloak only slyly winks and tells them not just to freeze in a crouch. Amaris suddenly springs into action and shouts for everyone to retreat as she prepares to take the hit herself. She rushed forward and shielded the group from the falling debris. The ice crashes like a blow in dead silence, falling down with a furious thud, tearing off a huge cloud of snow and steam. Yusuku dashed through the hall to check everyone, hoping no one was hit by the ice collapse. The group is safe, and the boy in the cloak even gets a funny grab hug from Amaris, which makes Zero and Gyusuku look quite annoyed. They finally managed to clear the swamp, and they caught their breath as the sun began to set. Lily still has a thought stuck in her head. Why did her magic feel so different then and too powerful? Zero tries to stay calm and tells her that everything is fine after all. Everyone got out intact. Zero deeply knows in his soul, something is definitely wrong with Cape Guy. He glances sideways at the smiling man and feels some secret force, one that he cannot decipher. But the palpable weight of this mystery is already starting to break him, and he tells the whole group that he is simply tired and needs to go to sleep. Asuku waves him off, smiling brightly, thanking him for the ride. Zero knows he is getting closer to meeting the last great spirit. He lies down in the moonlight, but his thoughts race wildly, gloomy and joyless. He tells himself as soon as everything becomes clear, he will finally be able to stop and retreat. This is a tough cliffhanger, dude. Our guy finally realizes the truth he has been running from all this time. The squad has just landed in Zali Pond after they removed that huge snake. This place is the finale of their current quest. While the girls immediately jump into the water to refresh themselves, our guy Zero does not take his eyes off staying on guard and fully ready. Lily and the others got too excited with joy to just return to their element. They play it as a beach episode filler, but the atmosphere is clearly suspicious. Of course, the local simp tries to offer his help with washing their backs, but he is immediately sharply cut off. Zero has to physically drag him away before he cancels himself. Our guy is not in the mood for jokes today and sharply gives a quick slap to keep the team alert. Even despite the peaceful landscape, Zero cannot shake the feeling that something is wrong. Koya notices that Zero is sweating all the time and decides to get to the bottom of what is really bothering him. He asks if Zero does not feel out of place despite the great honor of their journey. He even suggests that Zero might decide this whole story is some kind of mistake. Zero finds it funny. Koya himself is trying to convince him otherwise. It is a bitter realization. He has no ready answer. Sudden screams from the lake interrupted their deep conversation and made both of them turn sharply. They find the girls in a strange situation. The water behaves as if it is a trash mob and rushes like a trash mob. Instead of helping immediately, Koya suggests first to take a closer look, and by this proves that he is a real man with taste. Zero does not give him a word and lashes again, demands find a way to fix this. A mysterious voice reproaches them for rudeness as if they are judging the behavior of a pawn. Suddenly the water bursts in an uncontrollable huge splash. It is a sign that soon the power will be shown to the maximum. Girls remain stunned as soon as the real boss finally arrives. She introduces herself as the Great Water Spirit and gladly welcomes them to her domain. Zero immediately calls her a perverted spirit as soon as she admits that she lacks the feeling of young skin. She does not mind their audacity and admits that they have already met other great spirits. Kuya does not hesitate, declares that he will rule over humans and spirits to fix the magical disorder in the world. The spirit recognizes Kui's answer and addresses him as the Great Bright Spirit. The girls are completely confused by this news. But Zero is immersed in his own thoughts, putting together what he has noticed for several days. He is the only one who can interact with the blackstone barriers that suppress other spirits. Moreover, his ability to see Chibis has always been a huge red flag. He tried to ignore the truth, but reality looks him straight in the face. The water spirit shifts its gaze to him and calls him Great Dark Spirit Zero. This is the last piece of the puzzle that confirms his humanity is already in the past. The revelation that Zero is actually a great spirit knocks all the composure out of the girls. Our guy completely denies everything. He doesn't believe he could be something so legendary. He decided that if he were a spirit, he would only become another one of those cute Chibis, not an absolute unit with a human body. The wolf girl refuses to be stopped and demands that the lady explain what the hell is going on. Zero finally snaps and shouts, "Shut up, who's more confused here, you or me?" Even in crisis, Zero can't help but notice the lady spirit is a total shark. The rest of the harem is by no means happy that he is staring like that. They throw him harsh, deadly looks. Zero tried to de-escalate the tension, told them to go and change clothes so everyone could focus. The spirit lady just quietly laughs and beams at the compliment about her appearance. She even drops a bomb, like, "If you want, I'm not against being your fourth, you know." Now Zero takes course again and asks if the statement about the Great Spirit was really true. The lady becomes serious and explains the legends about the Great Light and the spirits of darkness. First of all, the Great Spirit of Light is the one who will fix the world, she reveals. They were chosen from the dead of this world, so his body is technically a ghost. Meanwhile, the Great Dark Spirit is the one who changes the world and comes from another dimension. He looks him straight in the eyes and confirms, and that's you, Zero. It seems that way they can absorb experience and make choices based on human failings. If they choose a local, they will drive him within the bounds of this world's common sense. They will just try to balance everything based on what they already know. But Zero is a trump wild card because he is not bound by the common sense of this world. He can make decisions relying only on his own knowledge. That light spirit fixes the world without destroying it, and the dark spirit changes it, regardless of local rules. Being human is just a speedrun. strategy to understand the world better than the Chibis can. Zero realizes he has truly evolved and has already gone beyond humanity. Girls look at him sweating because they feel the weight of his new purpose. The lady asks, "So what is your decision?" Zero still understands that his main goal is to save the Chibis. He needs to protect those who have turned into black stones and not destroy the lives of everyone around. Part of him reasons the best move is to erase the magic and free the spirits. If he had not met his friends, he probably would have destroyed all the magic in the world completely. In his past life, he knew people survive peacefully even without magic. But then he looks back and realizes it is magic that makes this world so beautiful. The existence of Chibis adds colors to this world that he does not want to remove. He clenches his fist. He is shaken by a whole RG wave of emotions. He admits that he still has not grasped the perfect answer. Time flows and she hands him a staff that contains the power of all the great spirits. Their final stop is Orphan Castle, which stands in the very center of the continent. This is the only place where their wish can become reality. The journey officially enters its climax and the hype is real. Zero finally gathers the last great spirit for his collection. Koya loses his head. Our guy really managed to complete the entire set. But even if it looked like a continuous ordeal, Zero confirms he met all 4 main big shots. The celebration is cut short when a high-ranking spirit warns them, "Do not relax." Ray begins to ask real questions about the secret dungeon treasure hidden beneath the royal castle. And there, down below, there is an altar specially made to speak directly to the great god in the sky. Suddenly, Knight snatches the stage and it looks as if he has just experienced a complete erasure of everything. He falls to his knees to bring Amari's the worst news possible. It turned out that the Spirit Liberation Army just did a speed run of the castle and captured everything. Zero does not ask for details, but Kuya looks as if drops of sweat are pouring down like hail. Amari's boils with anger, suspecting that Kuya knew from the very beginning that this raid was coming. Not a step forward, only a demand to Kuya to stop gatekeeping and clarify the situation. Boy tries to play the "I'm doing this for the world" card. He doesn't care even if the castle is deleted as long as he repairs the magical power. He tracks glitches in the world's mana and wants to reboot the system. Zero exposes him. He was actually planning a bloody coup to replace the government. Kuya admits he is ready for the army to crush him as long as his mission is accomplished. But he realizes time is a complete mess because they are not yet ready for the next phase. The secret component of his plan is a thing called Black Magic Stone. The strategy was to use these stones as bait for monsters and draw their aggro to the castle. The girls are terrified to the point of trembling at how cold-blooded this plan is. Kuya says it was not just bad RNG that caused the sharp increase in the number of trash mobs near the capital. It's all because of the stones secretly placed under the king's feet. These stones work like a beacon, and every monster nearby turns into a furious creature. Zero understands stacking those stones in the capital is effectively a death sentence. He forces the king to send his guards to the gates and leaves him exposed for a treacherous strike from the rear. Knight confirms the minister and the knight captain have already made their move. No miracles how the minister manages the stone at all if they usually exhaust a person to the limit. Turns out the minister is a top-level researcher who found a bypass. Grace accidentally reveals that she has been holding one of the stones all this time and without any debuffs. Koya explains that she has a rare completed version in her hands, which does not drain mana from the user. The maid asks what happens to the monsters when the castle disappears. Kuya's plan was simple: throw the stones at God to drop the monsters' aggro. But while Zero has not yet finished unwinding the power, the castle will be completely destroyed. Girls realize how devilish this whole scheme is and start furiously hitting Kuya. No more chatter, we need to strike the castle before the game ends. Zero summarizes, the cause of all global backwardness sits right in the capital. He clenches his fist, preparing for the fight with the final boss. He understands excessive overthinking is for weaklings and it's time to get down to business, not waste time. Although the enemies have home support, our guy will win this fight without any doubt. With a slight smile, the world's most hired Yankee prepares to crush the rebellion with clean guts. Zero, Koya, and the whole team stand on the edge of a real geographical overhaul. Our guy is not just clearing the way, he is carving a whole giant canyon in the swamp, as if it were a standard mod for terraforming. Maris and Grace are completely stunned, utterly impressed by the raw result of the great spirits. Turns out that having big light and dark spirits on the team is basically a cheat code. Maris wastes no time and orders everyone to run back to the southern village twice as fast. While they rush forward, Zero realizes his earth magic is essentially a loophole in the laws of physics of this world. He is amazed by his own stats, while Kuya chases exhausted knights with pitchforks for being too slow. Zero begins to piece together why the Spirit Liberation Army moved their timeline forward. Kuya has no answers but definitely feels the pressure. After Lily and Grace moved away from the capital, the city defense looks simply ridiculous. Zero drops a bomb. The enemy probably already thinks Koya is a traitor. The goal is clear. The rebels want to destroy the kings and capture the sanctuary under the castle. Kuya tries to argue, but he is simply physically dragged along. There is no time for debate. Mari's in strict instructor mode, yells at them to move their legs. Amid the chaos, Zero notices that Lily looks a bit restrained and gloomy. She asks if he is really a great spirit, and our guy just brushes it off as if it's a trifle. He is actually calm about being a Chiba ghost because he already died once in his past life. Lily gives him a warm, sincere smile, understanding his heart is in the right place. They finally roll up to the nearest town as the sun begins to set. Even if the carriage hits the capital, it will still take a whole day of travel. Suddenly, a group of knights from Amari's fan club jumps out to meet them and runs to greet them. They are almost sobbing because they could not protect the king. It turns out the king is now barricaded in his room, and Minister Gama's is unfolding a complete betrayal on all fronts. And Mars immediately takes control and calls an emergency meeting with an action plan. In the capital, inside there is utter disaster. Packs of goblins roam everywhere. Sneaking of elite units looks like a suicide mission given the current number of enemies. Zero gets tired of the delays and orders everyone, just shut up and listen. Maris feels he's preparing something. He asks the soldiers, does any one of them know basic earth magic? His plan is a pure speedrun strategy, to dig a huge tunnel straight into the underground sanctuary. The room suddenly freezes in dead silence as they realize how crazy this sounds. Kuya laughed and declared that this plan is sheer impossibility. He explains, even if they split mana between two, they will fall to zero long before reaching the castle. Kuya thinks that his 112 spirit contracts are a grand affair, but he is still just a small fish. He tells Zero that his plan won't work because he is too new in this world to make contracts. Grace looks worried as if calculating whether the plan will die on the way. That's when our guy decides to boast about his luck in gacha and reveals that he has 354 contracts. A literal ocean of Chibai spirits appears, proving that his power level is off the charts. The counter even jumps to 357 in real time, and the soldiers are simply shaken with shock. Grace sharply silences the skeptics, demanding quiet from the peanut gallery. She vouches for him, telling everyone that despite his scary appearance, he is a good person. She says that no one cares for the spirits more than he does. While the Liberation Army treats spirits like trash mobs, Zero treats them like family. Grace got a little flustered and admitted she just wants to help our guy win. Mara steps forward and retreats behind her sister, fully relying on Zero. And even the soldiers begin to gather, remembering how he once gave them strength. Zero still harbors resentment because everyone mocked his face, and he cannot stay angry for long. And when he sees the girls smile and believe in him, all this weariness becomes worth every moment. He quietly nods and thanks in a whisper while preparing for the mission. Maris gives the final green signal, start digging. The main magical operation is officially launched. The crew prepares to drill their way to victory. The team is now rushing on the speedy to the capital through a giant tunnel system. The girls are shocked Zero managed to carve such a deep path in one sitting. Our guy clarifies he only enhanced the soldiers' magic and he did not carry all the hard work alone. But despite everything, the power of the Great Spirit impresses with its scale, and it cannot be simply dismissed. Finally, they arrive at the underground cave and are forced to abandon the vehicle to continue on foot. This place is huge. Even the tallest buddy hunters are amazed by the scale of the hole under the city. The risks are enormous because the enemy, most likely, is entrenched in the most important places near the altar. Zero decides to move with a small group so that everything is quiet and without unnecessary noise, while the soldiers focus on rescuing the king. They move to the center where the altar was supposed to stand. Of course, no normal dungeon crawl goes without running into some trash mobs along the way. Instead of some big-headed strategy, the girls decide a frontal assault is the only way. Zero does not hesitate and leads the attack straight into the enemy's face. Enemy mages unleash a hailstorm, but Lily steps forward to shield aggro and pull him to herself. A strong explosion shakes the tunnel, and the armored weirdos think they really finished them off. They are already celebrating, reminding each other the spirits must be alive for their twisted plans. The smoke clears and behind it emerges an ice wall, which is not even scratched. Lily just smirks boldly and calls the whole situation easy peasy before freezing them all. Mages try to cover the barrier with fire magic to melt it, but it doesn't move at all. He can't suppress laughter and explains, the ice is soaked with his own magic, so he is essentially invulnerable. The enemy is sweating with fear, but they don't care, they just walk by and call him a real little demon. Grace is already itching with impatience to wait for her turn to fight, but Kuya insists that he will handle the remaining waves. Zero warns him if he keeps bragging, he might exhaust his mana. Kuya simply says that he can cope with the routine cruelty only thanks to pure courage because he finally feels capable of protecting everyone. Zero cuts the hero short during the heroic deed and says he has a disgusting character for being so self-sacrificing. Suddenly they come to a complete stop as soon as the path parts. They finally find it a huge sacrificial altar connected to the gods. Just as they are about to celebrate reaching their goal, someone shouts for them to wait. From the shadows emerges the Prime Minister, the appearance of such an absolute unit of a final boss. He mocks them for their ignorance and calls Kuya to start the ritual. The entire squad is completely paralyzed by what they see. Kuya casts a cold look at them and admits that he worked for the villains from the very beginning. The girls can't even digest the betrayal, begging for it to be just a sick joke. But Kuya just waves them off and says, "Thank you for everything so far," as he walks to the altar. Zero narrows his eyes and looks as if ready to erase the traitor on the spot. The old man with a monocle demands that Kuya give him even more magic to take care of the whole group. The dark-skinned man smugly admits that he was a rat all this time for the quest about the lizard man. Maris doesn't listen to his excuses and prepares to put an end to this circus once and for all. Suddenly, a huge magical circle bursts forth, pulsing with a dark and terrifying aura. Lily immediately recognizes the forbidden ritual demonic summoning. This burly combat unit monster emerges from the portal looking like a real nightmare. Wasting no time, the monster releases a wave of hellfire that threatens to burn the entire room to ashes. Lily barely manages to deploy ice shields to prevent the party from being wiped out. The clash of fire and ice generates a chaotic storm of steam and pressure. The villain chuckles and orders the group to burn to a bloody crust while his monster goes mad. Even with Zero Lily's colossal magical reserve, she warns, the ice will not withstand such a level of heat. The barrier cracks and melts under the devastating intensity of the demon's flame. Princess Grace suddenly steps forward, tired of being dead weight in every skirmish. She reveals that she can use fire magic and that she is the first person truly recognized by Person Zero. The monocle buddy mocks her and calls her nothing but a useless princess. Zero ignores the insults and decides to pump pure, raw magical power into her. Grace takes the energy like a true champion and prepares for a grand wager. She grips her staff with a gaze full of unwavering determination. Emerging again from behind the safe icy wall, she steps step by step right into the very hell. The old man shouts for her to turn to ashes. Grace gathers her thoughts, realizing she needs to keep the spirits under control to tame this flame. Zero watches his comrade without any delays, everything is in trust. In absolute flex, Grace stands completely unharmed while the fire swirls around her. She not only survived the attack, she successfully captured the demon's own fire. She tells the villain not to look down on her because on her side is a great dark spirit. Frightened, the old man presses on Kuya with pleading words and begs to give him more power to save his plan, which is already falling apart. Kuya simply looks at him with a cold gaze. It turns out he has completely run out of magical juice supplies. He admits it took quite some time to drain the old man's flight resources while he was stalling. Zero pulls out the stolen magic stones and thereby proves that he is the chief goblin treasure hunter. The old man screams about betrayal, but Kuya pays no attention. He says he only does what he wants and doesn't care about the consequences. While Batty only manages to spin his dirty monologue, Zero stops him with a single punch right in the face. Other merchants have already been arrested and tied together in the background. Maris looks with a deathly calm face and understands the direct threat has already passed. Grace shines with anticipation, waiting for Zero to praise her cool play with a nod. He finally tells her, "You did well," and she immediately lights up with joy. Of course, she immediately goes all out, starting to make remarks, saying he should have proposed to her. The celebration of victory is interrupted by a sudden, painful scream. Maris abruptly jumps forward when Kuya suddenly falls under the strike of an unknown force. Kuya flies away, choking on blood from coughing, and the air becomes as if leaden. Zero realizes that he has just encountered a monster of such a different level of power that it is incomparable. Mara stands her ground, covering the wounded Koyu from the newcomer. The real boss, Gomus, finally comes into the light looking like an invincible wall of steel. Bommels, the Knight Commander of the kingdom, steps into the light with a self-satisfied expression on his face. Zero immediately tries to stabilize the wounded Koya, using specialized medicine for his chibai spirits. Our guy has no idea at all who this fat idiot is, but he immediately recognizes trouble when he sees it. Zero demands an explanation for why a high-ranking official would betray his own position. Bommels insists that he is doing it for the sake of peace in his own, twisted way. His brilliant plan is to finally sever the connection between humanity and the spirits. Zero could not believe this audacity. Standing before him was this absolute giant. The point is that if people stop relying on magic, the spirits will finally stop fading. Bommels admits that he is actually terrible at magic and rose through pure steel craftsmanship. He knows you can't reach the Prime Minister. He has several spirit contracts. His goal is a world ruled only by raw power, without any spirit interference. Zero simply calls him a cursed gorilla and mocks his huge ego. Maris loses self-control and orders him to shut up immediately. Before she manages to rush forward, the commander orders her to check the ground around her feet. He scattered black stones on the floor that attract aggro from every monster in the zone. The entire room is a ticking time bomb with a delayed explosion. He knew without strategy you can't just win 1v2 against a great spirit. If they use magic, they will break the stones and destroy the altar. He breaks the stone with one blow just to prove he is not bluffing. Maris orders everyone to retreat and keep the Q aimed. She decides to deal with this bandit herself with her own blade. She feels responsible for not stopping her mentor before everything went so far. Clash starts without any delay. She tears forward. Her blades strike with such force that the whole room shakes. It's a speed exchange that would make any pro gamer sweat. Bommels is actually impressed by how much she has improved since their last meeting. She watches and is enchanted, not taking her eyes off, and with incredible precision dodges every stone, fighting wildly and flawlessly. Her sisters understand. She is now fueled by pure self-deprecation and bitter remorse. Two warriors clash blades in a desperate test of pure strength. Maris demands to know why he is so incredibly stupid. He insists that he is only bringing order to the chaos that the royal family has ignored for years. He asked why her family is allowed to rule, but he is not. Mara yells at him to shut up and pours everything into her next strike. No, she really takes the initiative and demands his complete surrender. Bommels just smirks boldly and tells her that she has really changed. Zero notices the trap and shouts for her to stay alert. Maris realizes his mistake a fraction of a second too late. Destructive energy bursts, the sensor recoils backward, and he flies in complete shock. Bommels mocks her for being soft and not finishing the job, even though she had a chance. He approaches to erase her from the face of the earth, forever delivers the final blow. But Zero takes 0 steps forward and blocks the strike with his body, so the tank doesn't even register the hit. The guy is all sweaty but doesn't let her get hurt. He broke his bones again but still holds his position. Zero's face becomes eerily cold as soon as he looks at the commander. Bommels thinks he has won because the group is cornered and broken. He is bold enough to suggest they start working together. Zero just stares at him, pure deadly hatred in his eyes. Bommels doesn't give up, offers a deal, one that sounds like a complete trap. While the villain waits for an answer, our guy checks his team, makes sure Amaku is holding on after her mana was drained by those cursed stones. He leaves no chances, orders the group to use the medicine chibai to immediately patch everyone up. After handing over his pipe for safekeeping, Zero's vibe completely changes. He has already endured being good, and tells the group that now he will give this old man a legendary thrashing. Bommels just laughs, having no idea what some troublemaker can do against an experienced commander. Zero is not scared at all, boasts that in his old world he was a true giant. He offers the old man a baptism in the old style, challenges him to a direct fistfight. Bommels takes the bait and thinks he has the advantage in a one-on-one fight. Zero understands that his magic is reduced against Amaku, so he arranges close combat to protect the black stones. Even Chibai cheers him on as he steps into the ring. The stakes have soared to the sky. If Bommels wins, the whole party must surrender. The commander crashes forward like a truck and shouts that there is no regret in his life choices. But Zero does not fight with honor. He immediately goes for a nasty frontal attack that completely confuses Bommels. Hits the second one to a strong blow, as if he has already completed this speedrun without mistakes and claimed victory. Bommels understands Zero is not some random kid, he is a street veteran. Zero only smirks boldly. He is not a knight and honest fighting does not warm him. The two began exchanging heavy blows, and from the explosive shockwaves the girl even started sweating. Bommels strikes like a real gorilla, and Zero takes a whole mountain of brutal hits. Even when he is knocked down, Zero does not retreat from his goal. Despite the blood, Zero is still grinning like a psycho. Gamles thinks he is about to deliver the final blow and end the fight right here. Zero meets it with another brutal frontal strike and yells at the gorilla not to look down on him. While Zero stands all battered, he finally shows. All this time under the hoodie he was hiding something. Ilya watches in horror as her boyfriend is already on the edge. It turned out Zero went for a dirty trick. He pressed a stone axe under his clothes so it would absorb all those heavy blows. Lily is simply stunned. He drags something so heavy just for tactical advantage. Gamles burns with rage, but Zero just laughs and waves it off, saying this is not his only surprise. He demands his pipe back, ready to put an end to the show. Zero revealed the real plan. He endured that beating just to pin Gamles in place. While they fought, Chibai focused on gathering absolutely all the blackstone in the area. Gamles realized he was played. Chibai stuck him piled a huge heap of stones behind his back. 0 points. He disables his weapon, shoots Gamles one last time for being a fat fool. When Gamles raises a fuss, Zero reminds him he is a Yankee, not a hero. Zero lets arrange a whacking Gamles with the pipe without any delay. He starts fiercely biting him, listing a whole set of reasons why the commander deserved this beating. The others from the rest of the company watch the slaughter, feeling both admiration and absolute disgust due to the lack of dignity. They tie Gamles to the post. In the end, it looks completely erased, as if deleted. Zero shrugged it off and told everyone, in a real fight, only the result matters. When the threat was neutralized, the group finally stands before the ancient altar. They have reached the end of this exhausting journey. Even the Chibai versions of the whole team do not know what to do next. Next, Zero decides to offer his spirit-charged pipe to the mechanism. He strikes the weapon on the ground with fury and shouts, "Eat this, the last sacrifice." Suddenly, the whole room bursts into a blinding flash of light. This huge surge of energy marks the beginning of the end of their mission. Zero opens his eyes, all broken after the fight. He gets up, covered in mud and blood after that blinding light in the very sanctuary. The group finds themselves in a huge ancient library, like a secret DLC zone. The girls are sweating profusely, realizing that this is the legendary place where God lives. Puya notes that Zero seems to have recognized the plan, and Zero admits this is exactly the place where he was first resurrected. Suddenly, a group of absolute units appears before them and stands to stop them. One of the elite creatures barked at them and asked why they decided to strike the sanctuary instead of praying. The villain in the center of the group just laughed and waved it off, then demanded to hear their final answer. Zero and Koya stand straight, focused and ready to complete the main quest. Koya keeps it simple. He says his answer is the same as when they last spoke. Everyone turns their gaze to Zero, waiting to hear what his decision is. Just then, some hunched guy in glasses suddenly arrives from who knows where. The girls are completely confused and insist that he finally explain who this nerd is, but Zero, with an indifferent look, drops a bomb. It turns out he has. God only smiles wickedly, noticing that Zero gave him the nickname Four Eyes without any permission, not even asking. Only when God explains the final reward does the mood become serious. They can use their power exactly once to fundamentally change the world. They could choose to become rulers of the world or erase all people from the face of the earth if they consider this species to be trash. Zero requests no confirmation, only that he essentially has his own sandbox mode for reality. God asks whether the journey finally helped him find the answer he was looking for. Zero begins a monologue admitting, from a world without magic, he knows that people can survive on their own. But after traveling through this world, he realized it is a true masterpiece, mainly thanks to Chibis. He claims that without magic, people will simply create technologies that will quickly accelerate the destruction of nature. Chibis are special in that they make contracts only with those they truly like. It all comes down to that mutual connection and feeling. Zero shows his brilliant move rotation. He wants to completely separate the spirit forest from the human world. When a spirit finishes its mana and turns into stone, it automatically teleports to the forest to recover. Thus, even broken stones can stay with their friends while they heal. This is a system where people can still use magic without forcing spirits to make contracts they do not want. God confirms the plan was not cut and can actually be executed. Puya believes the idea is fire and supports the plan. He laughs and notes Zero's character never changes, he always puts spirits first. God reveals this plan has one huge downside. Without a guide, spirits will not be able to return from the forest on their own. Alright, Zero returns to God, ready to accept the sacrifice. Girls understand what he has in mind and shout for him to stay while he prepares to abandon them and leave. Zero drops a bomb. He is the one who will have to stay behind. Grace immediately starts sweating profusely and cannot come to terms with her boyfriend being cut and pushed out of the party. The guy in glasses explains, the great spirits have work so they have no options left. Boyer admits even with his magic, he is not the one needed for this task. He reveals that Zero has been carrying the team hard all this time, spending his own mana reserves. The guy is actually much more exhausted than he shows. Even after spamming high-level spells, he still manages to keep a slight smile. This man is a complete powerhouse, building walls and digging tunnels, and not a single soul breaks. Grace is broken. If he leaves, she will be stuck in solo play forever. Lily tries to convince him to stay and enjoy the world they just saved. Zero is set on crossing to the other side. He knows it will be a lonely, exhausting routine. Looking at the blood-stained clothes, you can see how much this path has worn him out. He does this to thank the Chibis who saved him at the beginning. He reaches out his hand one last time. He strokes Lily and Grace on the head one last time, apologizing for the abrupt departure. Girls cry so much that their tears are enough to fill a mana potion. Zero turns to the boy with glasses and says that next time he should have a better explanation ready. He leaves his chibai seat with his ward. Then he starts bullying Koya, calls him a weakling, and orders Amaris to take care of him. Lily loses her composure, and Zero says that being so emotional is not like her. He thanks her for always keeping the group under control. Grace tries to forcibly pull aggro in, saying she won't let him go. Zero just smiles, giving her credit for how much he has changed. He gives her a final thank you. Grace is completely broken by the wave of emotions of the moment. He calls him unfair for leaving like that. Zero laughs not at all, he brushes it off, then thanks all the Chibis for being his ride or dies. He asks them to continue protecting the people of this world. Finally, he tells the Four Eyes to hit the switch. Right beneath him, a huge magical circle appears. He is pulled into the portal, and he puzzles over what kind of zero lag there is on the way. His last scream echoes as he disappears from the server. However, let's move forward 1 year. Grace looks like a real rebel back on the road again. After talking with the king, she decided to set out on the road to truly get to know the world. She decided to do everything she is capable of, even if she feels weak. Meanwhile, Amaris is still wearing Kuyu down, working to the bone. Now she is the night captain, and everyone sees they are basically flirting in public. Lily has grown a little. These two girls have been sticking close to each other all this time. Finally, they reach the spirit forest where it all began. Suddenly, they are surrounded by a pack of goblins made of trash. They have just lost their magic and can't even cast a simple shield anymore. Grace, Lily, and the world are stuck between fleeing and fighting in a losing battle. Suddenly, a burst of light, and it pierces through the entire group of goblins, wiping them out completely. Grace is stunned by the incredible power of the attack. Lily wonders who could have gathered so much firepower. A hand reaches through the smoke. It's our guy Zero, as if he never disappeared. Girls look as if they just saw a ghost. Zero admits he might have overdone the speedrun when rushing back. It turns out he sent so many spirits to the other side that he broke the world's magical flow again. Now he will have to travel around the world to fix the mess he made. He shifts his gaze to the girls and says, "Time to move." They are shocked that he wants them to go with him. He reminds them of the promise they made a year ago. Grace and Lily are completely on his side. They are ready to follow him forever. They promise to stay by his side. No smiles, ready again to challenge the world together with his team. Journey continues. The whole team is together again.